Hello everyone. I hope I'm perfectly audible and visible to all of you. So today we are going to analyze the questions of GK section in your NLSAT All India Open Mock, right? So the NLSAT All India Open Mock which you gave, in that we'll see the GK questions from all the passages. So first passage was based on election commission related topic, and there was one question of GK which was the last question. The Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners appointment, condition of services, terms of office Act 2023 was enacted by Parliament in. So when was this enacted by Parliament? This is the question. So this was enacted by Parliament in December 2023. In the month of March 2023, there was one judgment coming from Supreme Court, and to overturn that judgment and to ensure Election Commission of India के अंदर जो चीफ इलेक्शन कमिश्नर अपॉइंटमेंट होता है, the appointment of CEC must be done by the committee which is having Prime Minister of India, leader of opposition, and one of the ministers, right? इनके through वो appoint हुए जाए. That's why this change was done in December 2023. It was there in news. Let's move on to the next news that we have. अगले news पे अगले topic पे चलते हैं. So in the next passage, there was one question of GK section, right? There was again only one question of GK section, and since this topic was on racial discrimination, so when we see this, we can see this question is coming from the issue of reservation in India, right? This question came from the issue of reservation in India, and the answer for this question is the Mandal Commission. The Mandal Commission recommended 27% reservation, which was chaired by, so Mandal Commission was chaired by Brindeshwari Prasad Mandal. It was chaired by Brindeshwari Prasad Mandal. Two Mandals were there, right? दो मंडल के नाम दे दिए थे यहाँ पे, and that's why this you have to remember, Brindeshwari Prasad Mandal, right? जिनके अंडर ये कमेटी थी, and the recommendation, interestingly, the recommendation of this committee were pending for long period of time, and eventually फिर उस पर decision लिया गया था. Then if we move on to the next passage, there will be no question of GK section, I guess, right? इसके अंदर GK के कहीं पे भी कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं दिख रहे. author passage इसके बारे में बात की गई है. Next is nationalist discourse, religion. In this passage we can find a question of GK. There are two questions. The Brahmaputra river, which serves as a vital lifeline for multiple communities in northeast, कहाँ से ओरिजिनेट होती है ब्रह्मपुत्रा रिवर? सो ब्रह्मपुत्रा रिवर एंड गंगा रिवर आसपास ही ओरिजिनेट होते हैं. दे ओरिजिनेट, ब्रह्मपुत्रा पर्टिकुलरली की अगर बात करें तो तिब्बत रीजन में ओरिजिनेट होते हैं. विद इन तिब्बत रीजन देयर इज आंगसी ग्लेशियर इन तिबेटियन प्लेटू नियर माउंट कैलाश. यहाँ से इनका ये स्टार्ट होता है, राइट? एंड गंगा की बात करें तो देयर इज गंगोत्री ग्लेशियर से ये स्टार्ट होती है, एंड very close to Brahmaputra is actually Indus River. जो Indus River है वो भी Tibetan region से निकल के आती है. That is also coming from Tibetan region. Then Dr. Bhupen Hazarika, known as Bard of Brahmaputra, celebrated for his cultural contribution connecting diverse communities through reverse imagery, was posthumously awarded. इंडिया का हाईएस्ट सिविलियन अवार्ड किया गया था इन्हें 2019 में, that is भारत रत्न अवार्ड. He was awarded with the भारत रत्न इन 2019. इंडिया का हाईएस्ट सिविलियन अवार्ड इनको दिया गया था, भूपेन हजारिका, राइट? आल्सो वेरी फेमस सिंगर, राइट, फ्रॉम असम. असम से काफी फेमस ये जाने जाते थे असम के अंदर भी. देन इफ वी मूव ऑन टू नेक्स्ट, अगर हम 32 के ऊपर चले तो वैसे जीके का तो नहीं है, बट यस यू कैन फाइंड इट समवॉट रिलेटेड टू जीके. अगर आप, दीज आर द इजीएस्ट क्वेश्चंस. In constitutional and political theory, civic nationalism differs from ethnic nationalism. नाम से ही पता चल रहा है civic मतलब क्या है. जो आप कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की वजह से अगर साथ में हो, सिटीजनशिप की वगैरह अगर साथ में हो तो उसे वो अपना नेशनलिज्म अगर है तो उसे सिविक कहा जाएगा. एंड इथनिक नेशनलिज्म, एज द नेम सजेस्ट, अगर आपकी इथनिसिटी सिमिलर है, उसके थ्रू आप यूनाइटेड हो, तो दैट इज कॉल्ड एज इथनिक नेशनलिज्म. So when we talk about civic nationalism, it is common citizenship, adherence to constitutional values and shared political principle. That is called as civic nationalism. या उस टाइप के nationalism को civic nationalism कहा जाता है. Then let's move on to next question. Which major hydroelectric power project in northeast on Brahmaputra tributary has faced significant controversy? तो ब्रह्मपुत्रा की एक फेमस ट्रिब्यूटरी है कॉल्ड सुबानसरी, आप इसको वैसे ही कर सकते थे या एलिमिनेशन। तेहरी डैम नॉर्थ इन नॉर्थ ईस्ट, सरदार सरोवर भाखरा नांगल नॉर्थ ईस्ट में लोकेटेड नहीं है, देयर इज ओनली वन, दैट इज सुबानसिरी रिवर के ऊपर बना हुआ लोअर सुबानसिरी हाइड्रो इलेक्ट्रिक पावर प्रोजेक्ट, राइट, इट इज लोअर सुबानसिरी हाइड्रो इलेक्ट्रिक प्रोजेक्ट, जिसकी वजह से न्यूज में है। देन लेट्स मूव ऑन टू नेक्स्ट 34 टू 41 पे चलते हैं। इन दिस ऑल्सो लास्ट में अगर कुछ जीके क्वेश्चन होंगे तो हमें वो दिखाई देंगे, बट इसमें भी 40 तक तो कहीं पे भी नहीं है, राइट, देयर इज नो जीके क्वेश्चन, राइट, इसके अंदर कोई जीके क्वेश्चन नहीं था। देन लेट्स मूव ऑन टू नेक्स्ट 42 टू 49। आई थिंक इसमें देयर इज क्वेश्चन नंबर 49 व्हिच इज रिलेटेड टू जीके, एक बार देख लेते हैं। राइट, वैसे जीके नहीं है, पैसेज से भी निकल सकता था, बट जीके में भी काउंट कर सकते हो। The US Federal Reserve interest rate policy mentioned in the passage primarily responsibility of whom? It is responsibility of Federal Reserve के जो चेयरमैन होते हैं, किसकी जिम्मेदारी होती है? फेड रिजर्व, जो यूएसए का सेंट्रल बैंक है, जैसे हमारे देश में आरबीआई होते हैं, आरबीआई की गवर्नर की जिम्मेदारी होती है, यहाँ पे फेडरल रिजर्व के जो चेयरमैन होते हैं उन फेड रिजर्व के चेयरमैन की ये जिम्मेदारी होती है। द नेक्स्ट यूएस बेस्ड काफी सारे पैसेजेस थे, उसकी वजह से जीके का थोड़ा नंबर ऑफ क्वेश्चंस यहाँ पे हमें रिड्यूस होते हुए दिखाई दिए, राइट, जीके थोड़ा कम होते हुए दिखाई दिया, बिकॉज इंडिया से रिलेटेड पैसेज अगर आता है तो तुरंत उसमें जीके क्वेश्चन बन जाता है, बाहर वाले पे नहीं बन पाता। द चेयरमैन ऑफ जॉइंट चीफ ऑफ स्टाफ, highest ranking position in US military, serves principal military advisor to which of the following entities? अब इंडिया से रिलेटेड पूछ लेते हो तो पक्का जीके का सवाल बन जाता है, यहाँ पे ये पैसेज से भी निकल सकता था। एंड इंडिया में भी वी हैव सीडीएस, राइट, चीफ ऑफ डिफेंस स्टाफ, उनके बारे में पूछ सकते थे, बट यहाँ पे इन्होंने पूछा है अबाउट द यूएस, सो आंसर इज द प्रेसिडेंट, सेक्रेटरी ऑफ डिफेंस एंड नेशनल सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल, इन तीनों के लिए रिस्पॉन्सिबल होता है। अब नेक्स्ट इज वैदिक पीरियड से रिलेटेड कुछ दिखाई दे रहा है, इंडियन पैसेज है, दैट मींस वी कैन फाइंड फ्यू जीके क्वेश्चंस इन दिस, इसमें हमें कुछ जीके क्वेश्चन दिखाई दे सकते हैं, राइट, सो लेट्स मूव ऑन टू दिस। करेक्ट, पीसीपीएनडीटी एक्ट के बारे में है, दैट इज प्री कंसेप्शन प्रीनेटल डायग्नोस्टिक्स टेक्निक, जो कई बार हमारे देश में होता है ना कि बच्चों का जो सेक्स है उस सेक्स का डिटर्मिनेशन किया जाता है, एंड देन फीमेल इन्फेंटिसाइड फीमेल फिटिसाइड हम हमारे देश में देखते हैं, तो फीमेल फिटिसाइड मेनली किया जाता है पीसीपीएनडीटी एक्ट से, राइट, इन्फेंट्स होने से पहले पेट में उनको मार दिया जाए, ये आया था 1994 में, राइट, ये इन सब चीजों को बैन करने के लिए लाया गया था। प्री कंसेप्शन प्रीनेटल डायग्नोस्टिक टेक्निक जो जेंडर डिटेक्शन को रोकती है हमारे देश में, जो कि जरूरी भी है, राइट, विच इज वेरी important also to not have these kind of gender detection techniques किसी भी देश में, हमारे ही नहीं किसी भी देश में वैसे तो अलाउड नहीं होनी चाहिए, बट देयर आर अ फ्यू कंट्रीज जहाँ पे इसको थोड़ा लीनियंटली लिया जाता है, जैसे कि इफ यू सी कंट्रीज लाइक यूएई, जहाँ पे लॉज एनीवेज बहुत ज्यादा स्ट्रिक्ट है कि आप अगर ऐसी कोई चीज करोगे फीमेल इन्फेंटिसाइड या फिटिसाइड तो वैसे ही बहुत बड़ा क्राइम हो जाता है। द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, नेक्स्ट पैसेज पे आते हैं। If you find any GK question on this, this is related to Ubuntu, right? Now this is one of those topics जिसमें अगर आपने पढ़ा हुआ है इस टॉपिक को तो you could have answered this, अगर आपने नहीं पढ़ा है तो आपको इसे छोड़ देना था, there was no problem in this, right? अगर आपने पढ़ा है तो आंसर करो वरना छोड़ दो, उस टाइप के क्वेश्चन थे। The Desmond Tutu mentioned in the passage Nobel Peace Prize winner advocated Ubuntu philosophy रिसीव नोबेल प्राइज इन विच ईयर? अभी ये कहीं ना कहीं जीके से कनेक्टेड है, इसलिए इसका आंसर मैं आपको बता दे रहा हूँ, दैट इज 1984, राइट, कहीं ना कहीं थोड़ा बहुत जीके से कनेक्शन हमें इनका देखने मिलता है इस चीज का, इसलिए इसका आंसर अपन जीके में चलो कंसिडर कर लेंगे, बट दीज आर वन ऑफ दोज क्वेश्चंस, राइट, देयर विल बी ऑलवेज अ फ्यू क्वेश्चन इन जीके सेक्शन। देखो जीके सेक्शन में हमेशा कुछ सवाल ऐसे होंगे जिसका आंसर करना जरूरी नहीं है, यू शुड नॉट आंसर ऑल द क्वेश्चंस, if you don't know anything about that question and still you are going for answer, तो ब्लाइंडर मारना होता है, नेगेटिव मार्किंग है तो आपको ये ब्लाइंडर्स नहीं मारनी है, राइट, अगर नेगेटिव मार्किंग नहीं होती है, किसी एग्जाम में देते हो आप कभी कभी तो नेगेटिव नहीं होती है, तो उसके अंदर आप बिल्कुल सारे ऑप्शन लगाइए, लेकिन इस टाइप के क्वेश्चंस में इफ यू डोंट नो एनीथिंग यू शुड नॉट गो फॉर ब्लाइंडर, नहीं पता है छोड़ दो, दैट इज बेटर ऑप्शन। जैसे कि नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन है South African reference, Ubuntu chaired the, no need to remember this. Yeah, Nelson Mandela mentioned in the passage alongside this person emphasizing reconciliation and forgiveness, served as the first democratically elected president of South Africa. South Africa के पहले democratically elected president थे for the period of 94-99, right? 1994 से लेके 1999 तक थे, 1994 से लेके 1999 तक यहाँ पे ये president थे. So these were few questions of जीके सेक्शन इन द पेपर. ज्यादा क्वेश्चन जीके के नहीं आए थे ऑफ कोर्स, राइट? ज्यादा क्वेश्चन उसमें जीके के नहीं थे, बट जनरली आपके एग्जाम में थोड़े नंबर ऑफ क्वेश्चन ज्यादा होते हैं जीके के इफ इंडियन पैसेजेस आर देयर. So I think this was it for today's session. Thank you so much. I hope you liked the session. I hope you enjoyed the session and see you guys in the next class. And सारे मॉक अगर जितने भी होते हैं आप चाहते हो करवाने चाहिए तो जरूर उसके लिए रिक्वेस्ट कर सकते हो और सारे मॉक्स अटेंड करना, that would be better. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, and welcome to LegalEdge. Now, in this session, we'll be having the analysis of Part B of our first All India Open Mock of NLSAT. So there were two parts of this particular paper, and you must all be aware about that particular thing. And we'll be primarily dealing with Part B, which is our subjective portion of the paper, which actually deals with certain questions of your legal reasoning, and along with that, the passage, or I can say that analytical essay as well. So there were 6 questions which are based on legal situations in which we had to come to a conclusion and write a subjective answer over there. And the rest, there were 3 options of writing an essay out of one of the topics which was mentioned over there. So let's start discussing about, firstly, regarding this legal reasoning questions of our paper. So the first question was based on your offense of theft and criminal misappropriation. So the principle in your paper is actually given in your question only. And on that basis, we have to write our judgment in a way. So the question was that for theft, dishonest intention must exist at the time of taking the movable property. And dishonest intention means intention to cause wrongful loss to owner or wrongful gain to oneself. So when it comes to the offense of theft, your dishonest intention is present right from the very beginning, that is before even obtaining the property. You had that particular dishonest intention. And what is the meaning of dishonest intention? So it refers to the kind of intention wherein you are willing to cause some kind of a wrongful loss to another person or wrongful gain to yourself. So when property comes into possession innocently and dishonest intention develops later, the offense constitutes criminal misappropriation and not theft. This was the legal principle which was given to us. So if that intention is present right from the very beginning, that is even before obtaining the property, that's theft. And if the property was obtained innocently and your dishonest intention develops later, that is criminal misappropriation. So the question was that Anita works as a cashier at a small neighborhood electronics store. One evening, while closing the counter, she noticed that a customer had accidentally left behind an expensive pair of wireless earphones on the billing desk. The shop was about to close and no other customer was present. So Anita informed her manager about the found earphones, but the manager was busy and told her to handle it. Anita placed the earphones in the store's drawer with a note saying found 1511. The next morning, finding the drawer unlocked and fearing the earphones might get stolen, she took them for safekeeping and intending to bring them back when the customer returned. However, after a week passed with no inquiry, she assumed that the customer wouldn't return and sold them to a friend. Now, when the customer returned to inquire about missing earphones, CCTV footage was reviewed and the store owner wants to file a criminal charges against Anita. As a judge, analyze whether Anita's conduct amounts to theft or criminal misappropriation. So what we have to do in this particular situation is the property was left behind, and initially Anita took the property for safe keeping, wherein we can say that the property came into possession of Anita innocently. Yes or no? But subsequently, she decided to sell it to another person or to her friend when nobody came to inquire about the product. So even though the property came innocently into the possession of Anita, the dishonest intention dishonest intention developed later on. So the offense which we have over here will not amount to theft, rather it will be considered as criminal misappropriation. All right, and we had to write the judgment in accordance to that particular reasoning only. So when it came to the possession of the property was taken innocently. So Anita takes earphones to keep them safe. So the intent was innocent, that is, there was no menswear which was present over there. So this cannot be considered as theft. And 1 week later, action was that Anita decides to sell them. This amounts to dishonest conversion. Why dishonest? See, dishonest over here is not something which will be considering as malice in the opinion of the person. है ना, यहाँ पे डिसऑनेस्ट का मतलब उसका कोई बुरा इंटेंशन नहीं है. यहाँ पर डिसऑनेस्ट का मतलब है कि किसी पर्सन को रॉन्गफुल लॉस कॉज करा देना, खुद का रॉन्गफुल गेन. क्या वो अनीता के खुद के ईयरफोन्स थे? तो वो अनीता के ईयरफोन्स तो थे ही नहीं. तो जब वो उसको बेच रही है और उसके पास पैसा आ रहा है, तो वो एक रॉन्गफुल गेन हो रहा है उसको. दैट इज सफिशिएंट टू कॉन्स्टिट्यूट डिसऑनेस्ट इंटेंशन. But because this dishonest intention comes into existence later on, therefore the offense which will be considered over here is criminal misappropriation. So the property coming into possession innocently, followed by a subsequent conversion to one's own use, constitutes criminal misappropriation and not theft. So this was the verdict which you had to write in this particular question. So your framing could have been that initially Anita got the possession of the property, she kept it in the drawer. So there was nothing which can be considered as the offense of theft being constituted over there. Why? Because the dishonest intention was absent from there. But when she took the property and later on sold it to another person, that amounts to a wrongful gain to this individual or to Anita. Therefore, the dishonest intention was being coming into existence subsequently to the property coming into possession. So therefore, this will be considered as an offense of criminal misappropriation. That would have been the appropriate answer in our question number 1. All right. Ciao. So let's move to the second one. So the second question, which was related to, it was a bit lengthy question, and this was something which was related to the nature of a relationship. Now, under family law, the question says, under family law, a relationship between two adults may receive legal recognition if it demonstrates characteristics similar to marriage, such as long-term cohabitation, shared household, financial interdependence, and public representation as a couple. Merely living together without stability or shared responsibility does not by itself create a legal obligation. The existence of such a relationship is determined by examining the overall nature of the arrangement rather than any single factor. This was the legal principle. This was the legal principle given to us. ठीक है, अब लीगल प्रिंसिपल क्या था कि भाई फैमिली लॉ के अंदर दो लोगों के बीच के रिलेशनशिप को हम एक लीगल रिकग्निशन दे सकते हैं अगर उसमें सिमिलर कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स दिखे, जैसे कि मैरिज में होती है कि बहुत टाइम से साथ में रह रहे हैं, शेयर्ड हाउस होल्ड में रह रहे हैं, फाइनेंशियल इंटरडिपेंडेंस है दोनों पार्टीज के बीच में, एंड पब्लिक की तरफ उनका रिप्रेजेंटेशन एज ए कपल है. बट आगे ये भी लिखा हुआ है क्वेश्चन में कि सिर्फ साथ में रहना, merely living together without stability or shared responsibility does not by itself constitute a legal obligation. एंड इस तरीके की लीगल रिलेशनशिप को डिटरमाइन करने के लिए आपको ओवरऑल नेचर ऑफ द रिलेशनशिप को देखना होगा रादर देन एनी सिंगल फैक्टर. सिर्फ किसी एक फैक्टर को देख के आप डिसाइड नहीं कर लोगे कि दोनों पार्टीज के बीच का लीगल रिलेशनशिप कैसा है. आपको ओवरऑल विमर्स चीज को कंस्ट्रक्ट करना होगा, एंड दिस वाज द लीगल प्रिंसिपल गिवन टू अस. So the situation was that Rohan and Simran met while working at the same advertising firm in Mumbai. After dating for approximately 8 months, they began living together in a rented two-bedroom apartment in Bandra. So can we say that now these two individuals are actually having a shared relationship? ठीक है, या shared household में अब ये लोग. The lease agreement was signed solely in Rohan's name, listing him as the sole ऑक्यूपेंट. लेकिन जो लीज अग्रीमेंट बना था वो सिर्फ रोहन के नाम पे बता था और उसमें सिर्फ उसको ही सोल ऑक्यूपेंट उस प्रॉपर्टी का बताया गया था. नाउ द क्वेश्चन फर्दर सेज दैट during the initial 2 years both Rohan and Simran worked full time and they maintained a separate bank account, though Simran would transfer a fixed sum of 15,000 monthly to Rohan's account, which she described as my share of rent and utilities. So this was something which was important. 15,000 rupees were monthly given to Rohan's account, which she described as my share of rent and utilities. Now, groceries and household items were purchased alternately without any tracking. Now, they occasionally attended social events together and had dinner with each other's parents on few occasions. However, neither family formally acknowledged them as a couple, and Simran's parents repeatedly asked her when she would settle down properly. So, neither family formally acknowledged them as couple. Now, in the third year, Simran was diagnosed with a chronic health condition requiring regular treatment. She reduced her work to a part time freelance project, significantly lowering her income. And during this period, Rohan covered most household expenses without any explicit agreement or discussion about repayment. And Simran managed household chores and coordinated Rohan's social calendar while recovering. This particular factual situation is actually hinting some kind of an interdependence between the parties. Now, facts further says that during the fourth year, during the 4 year period, during a 4 year period, Simran sometimes introduced Rohan as a partner to colleagues and friends. However, Rohan's introduction of Simran varied, sometimes calling her as flatmate, other times his girlfriend, and occasionally his partner. Okay? At Rohan's office party, when a colleague asked if they were practically married, Rohan laughed and said, "We are just seeing how the things will go." Now, Rohan's parents visited twice during the 4 years. During these visits, Simran stayed with a friend to avoid awkwardness, and Rohan told his parents he was living alone. Simran was upset but accepted the explanation that Rohan's parents were traditional. Okay? Now, in the fourth year, tensions arose. Simran discovered messages on Rohan's phone suggesting he was seeing someone else. When confronted, Rohan said, "We never agreed to be exclusive forever. You knew this wasn't a marriage." Simran, hurt and angry, accused him of treating her like a convenience. After weeks of arguments, Rohan asked Simran to move out and stay, uh, stating that the apartment was his lease and he needed space. After leaving, Simran sought financial support, stating that she had adjusted her career during the relationship, and Rohan denied any obligation, stating that they were never married and the arrangement was purely personal. Now, as a judge, how would you decide whether the relationship between Rohan and Simran attracts legal recognition or and corresponding obligation? So, what were the legal principles which are given to us? The legal principles which are important over there are long-term cohabitation, shared household, financial interdependence, and public representation as a couple. These were the four essentials which are given to us. What were the four essentials? So the four essentials which are given to us included your long-term cohabitation, ठीक है, shared household, financial interdependence, and public representation. Public representation. See, now in this particular question, it was possible to argue from both the sides. Okay? In this particular question, it was actually possible to argue from both the sides. And why am I saying that? Because see, it's not the case that you will only consider one or the other factor to come to a conclusion. है ना, सिर्फ एक फैक्टर को देख के मैं कंक्लूजन डिसाइड नहीं करना है. We have to look at holistically. तो जब कोहैबिटेशन की हम बात करते हैं, when we refer to cohabitation, तो कोहैबिटेशन के मामले में तो भाई ये लोग 4 साल तक साथ में रहते थे. अगर हम शेयर्ड हाउस होल्ड की बात करें तो शेयर्ड हाउस होल्ड के बारे में भी लीज द लीज वॉज ओनली इन द नेम ऑफ रोहन. But as a matter of fact, Simran was also living in that room only. ठीक है, वो भी उसी फ्लैट में रह रही थी, तो इट वाज काइंड ऑफ अ शेयर्ड हाउस होल्ड ओनली, है ना. फाइनेंशियल इंटरडिपेंडेंस की अगर हम बात करें, इफ वी रेफर टू फाइनेंशियल इंटरडिपेंडेंस, तो फाइनेंशियल इंटरडिपेंडेंस के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से भाई सब लोग रेंट और यूटिलिटीज दोनों ही साथ में मैनेज कर रहे थे. एंड जब सिमरन की तबीयत खराब हुई तो उस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम पे जब उसकी इनकम रिड्यूस हुई, so it was this person Rohan who was absolutely managing everything. But when we refer to the situation of public representation, तो पब्लिक रिप्रेजेंटेशन के मामले में कोई कोई क्लियर ग्राउंड नहीं है ना. कोई क्लियर क्लियर हमारे पास ऑब्जर्वेशन या कंक्लूजन नहीं है, क्योंकि इन सर्टेन केसेस he referred to her as a partner, as a flatmate, as girlfriend. But when he was jokingly asked that whether they were practically married, he said we are just looking at how the things go. So there was no clarity. Okay. So with this perspective, we had a mixture of situation over here. And therefore, when it comes to the decision in this case, it was possible to take the sides of both the parties. तो आप सिमरन को भी सक्सीड कराने का ऑप्शन यहाँ पर चूज कर सकते थे, क्योंकि भाई यहाँ पर रिलेशनशिप लास्टेड फॉर 4 years. सिमरन एडजस्टेड वर्क फॉर रिलेशनशिप. रोहन सपोर्टेड हर, which shows that there was a financial interdependence. They had a shared household because they ran the home together, pooled resources for rent and utilities, and there was shared groceries and household items and other chores as well. And therefore, this interdependence created a domestic partnership worthy of legal recognition. तो आप सिमरन को सक्सीड कराने का भी ऑप्शन यहाँ पर दे सकते थे. रोहन की साइड से बात करें तो आप रोहन की साइड से भी बात कर सकते थे कि भाई deliberate hiding of relationship from parents, introduced Simran as flatmate, joked about being practically married, but explicitly rejected the label, separate bank account, transfer labeled strictly as share of rent, implying a commercial arrangement. Rohan stated that the relationship was never agreed to be exclusive in nature. And these active efforts to deny the relationship publicly and privately negate the claim of marriage like a union. And therefore, it was possible to take the decision in the light of or in the favor of Rohan as well. तो दोनों पॉसिबिलिटीज किया यहाँ पर आप दोनों के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से इस चीज को जज कर सकते थे. ठीक है. So this was the second question which was given to us in this particular thing. Now let's move to the third question. The third question was based on kind of international topic. Now it stated that the International Environment Cooperation Act of 2026 was enacted to give domestic effect to international commitments undertaken by the state. And the Act provides that where the government enters into a binding international agreement relating to environmental protection, public authorities must act consistently with the obligations assumed unless Parliament expressly authorizes deviation in exceptional circumstances. The Act also states that economic development projects may proceed only if they do not cause significant transboundary environmental harm. तो भाई ये एक एक्ट है, उस एक्ट के हिसाब से डोमेस्टिक इफेक्ट देना है आपको इंटरनेशनल कमिटमेंट्स को. ठीक है. तो जितने भी कमिटमेंट्स आपने एनवायरमेंटल प्रोटेक्शन को लेकर लिए हैं, डोमेस्टिक अथॉरिटीज, पब्लिक अथॉरिटीज को उन सारे कमिटमेंट्स को इफेक्ट में लाना है unless parliament expressly provides certain kind of an exception and in or any kind of a deviation in exceptional circumstances. सेकेंडली, अगर कोई ट्रांसबाउंड्री इंटरनेशनल हार्म हो रहा है, इन्वायरमेंटल हार्म हो रहा है, तब उस केस में आप अपने डोमेस्टिक डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम्स को रन नहीं कर सकते. Now, the state recently entered into a regional climate agreement with neighboring countries to reduce pollution in shared river basin. Now, within a year of signing the agreement, the government approved the construction of a large hydroelectric project near the river's upper stretch. Environmental assessment indicated that while the project would boost domestic energy capacity, it could reduce downstream water flow during dry seasons, potentially affecting agriculture in neighboring countries. Local residents were displaced due to project, while environmental groups raised concern about states' international commitments. The government stated that energy security and economic development were national priorities, and that agreement did not explicitly prohibit such projects. International commitments may coexist with domestic priorities, but conflicts can rise when actions have cross-border consequences. As a judge, how would you determine whether approval of the projects complies with the obligation arising from international agreement as recognized under the Act? तो इस सिचुएशन को अगर आप ध्यान से क्रिटिकली एनालाइज करो तो ट्रांस बाउंड्री इफेक्ट तो है हमारे पास, है ना। अब यहां पर मतलब जो हमारी पब्लिक अथॉरिटीज है, नेशनल अथॉरिटीज है, दे आर डिविएटिंग फ्रॉम देयर इंटरनेशनल कमिटमेंट्स, एंड डिविएशन इज अलाउड ओनली इफ इट इज ऑथराइज्ड बाय द पार्लियामेंट। तो क्या पार्लियामेंट ने यहां पर ऑथराइजेशन दिया किसी भी तरीके का? तो वो तो ऑथराइजेशन के बारे में हमें फैक्चुअल सिचुएशन में कुछ दिख नहीं रहा है। तो टेक्निकली स्पीकिंग, इन दिस पर्टिकुलर सिचुएशन, this project cannot be considered as legally valid. So this was the obligation to prevent transboundary harm under the Indian International Environmental Cooperation Act. But there was a domestic hydroelectric project जिसका justification था urgent domestic energy needs. The rule was a government cannot cite domestic necessity to violate specific regional water sharing agreement it voluntarily entered. अब प्रोजेक्ट डाउनस्ट्रीम फ्लो रिड्यूस कर रहा है, causing significant transboundary harm. The act requires consistency with cross-border harm prevention, and the Parliament authorized no deviation from these international commitments. तो क्या इस सिचुएशन में आप उस प्रोजेक्ट के क्लियरेंस को वैलिड मान सकते हो? सो द आंसर वुड बी नो। आप डोमेस्टिक रिक्वायरमेंट्स के नाम पर ट्रांसबाउंडरी हार्म इस लीगल प्रिंसिपल के हिसाब से तब तक नहीं कर सकते हो जब तक पार्लियामेंट आपको स्पेसिफिक डिविएशन अलाउ ना करे, क्योंकि पार्लियामेंट ने यहां पर स्पेसिफिक डिविएशन अलाउ नहीं किया था। Therefore, this particular project clearance will not be considered as legally valid. ठीक है, चल, let's move to the next question. Now, the next question which was given to us was related to the defense of act of God. So the question was that Priya booked a long distance bus ticket operated by Swift Road Travels for an overnight journey between two states. The bus was advertised as having reclining seats, onboard restrooms, and a trained driver crew. Due to unexpected heavy rainfall, several highways were partially flooded on the day of travel, causing traffic delays across the region. Midway through the journey, the bus driver decided to take an alternative interior route to avoid flooded highway. This route was poorly lit and uneven, despite repeated complaints from passengers about reckless driving and excessive speed. The driver continued without stopping. Eventually, the bus skidded on a wet patch, hit a roadside barrier, and overturned. Several passengers, including Priya, sustained injuries. As per Swift Road Travels, the accident was caused by unavoidable weather conditions and that the driver acted in good faith to ensure timely arrival. The company further stated that passengers were informed that travel during monsoon season involved inherent risk. Priya contended that while rain was unavoidable, the driver's manner of driving and choice of route showed lack of reasonable care and that the company failed in its duty to ensure passenger safety. Priya seeks compensation for her injuries and medical expenses. While will Priya succeed in holding Swift Road Travels liable for negligence? So what is happening in this situation? We are having a defense of something which is known as act of God. Now, what is act of God? Act of God is a situation wherein because of natural forces in action, if some kind of a damage is caused, then you cannot make the defendant liable. Okay. Rainfall is a natural force. Let's say that rainfall is a natural force. But it is clearly mentioned in the factual situation that the driver was reckless in driving. And even after the complaint of the passengers, he was driving the bus in a high speed on a wet road. So, do you think that he had taken the reasonable care which is expected out of a driver in such a situation? So, the answer would be no. You will get the defense of, or you'll get the benefit of the defense of act of God when you have taken reasonable care on your own part. But because the driver had not complied with the requirements or the standards of reasonable care in this particular situation, therefore the company will not get the benefit of the defense of act of God, and thus Priya should be succeeding in holding swift road travels liable for the negligence. So the claim was that heavy rain and a wet patch caused the skid, which is an act of God, but there is a duty of care. Heavy rain is a known hazard and not an unforeseeable event. And when there is such kind of hazardous conditions present, then they require more caution, not less. And the passengers complained about the speed and driver failed to adjust. So it shows that driver did not take reasonable care in the situation of the wetty road or in the hazardous situation of rain. And therefore, the verdict should be that swift road travels is liable because the proximate cause was driver's unreasonable response to the rain and not the rain itself. That is the primary reason of the accident taking place in this particular situation. All right. So this was question number 4, which was given to us. Let's move to the next question. Now, question number 5. Now, question number 5 was somewhat related to your law of contracts. Okay. And it provided that Arushi, a 27-year-old classical dancer, Arushi, a 27-year-old classical dancer, entered into a 5-year performance agreement with Rangmanch Production, a private cultural organization that managed national and international tours for artists. The agreement provided Arushi with regular performances, training opportunities, and a fixed monthly remuneration. One clause in the agreement stated that during the term of contract, Arushi shall not enter into marriage or any relationship likely to affect her public image or professional commitments, and that the breach of this condition would result in immediate termination of the contract and forfeiture of all pending payments. So, what the company was trying to do, they were putting a restraint of marriage in the contract with respect to Arushi, that she cannot enter into a marriage while she is in a contract with Rangmanch Productions. Now, 2 years into the agreement, Arushi married her longtime partner. Upon learning this, Rangmanch Production terminated her contract, cancelled her upcoming performances, and refused to release her pending payment, citing breach of contractual conditions. Arushi argued that her marriage had no impact on her performances or professional obligations, and that she had continued to meet all artistic commitments. Rangmanch maintained that the clause was essential to preserve the organization's branding strategy and long-term planning, and that Arushi had voluntarily agreed to the condition. Now, the legal principle was given over here that clauses restricting marriage are generally void as against public policy, and even reasonable or partial restraint are strictly scrutinized since marriage is a protected personal institution and commercial convenience cannot justify such limits. Now, Arushi approaches the court seeking enforcement of her contractual rights and release of the withheld payments. Will Arushi succeed in challenging the clause restraining her marriage? Now, there is one clear rule of your law of contracts which simply says that agreement in just a second, agreement in restraint of marriage are void in nature. Okay? Agreement in restraint of marriage are void in nature. Whenever through an agreement you are actually trying to stop the other party from getting married, that particular agreement or that particular clause of your agreement will be considered as void in nature. No matter what, that whether the person had voluntarily signed that particular agreement or condition, irrespective of that, your agreement will be considered as void in nature. And therefore, in this particular situation, because this restraint of marriage in itself is void, therefore the termination of contract, will not be valid. And because the termination of contract will not be valid, therefore Arushi should be in a position to recover her dues. All right. So this would have been the appropriate judgment in this particular case. So the question was Rangmanch Productions versus Arushi, the contractual or the contract argument that Arushi cannot marry during her contract to protect her public image and availability as a star. But the legality or the legal principle is that the agreement and restraint of marriage are void ab initio under Section 26 of the Indian Contract Act as they go against the public policy. And therefore, because marriage is a fundamental social institution, commercial branding arguments cannot override the statutory right even if the party agreed to it. And because this particular clause is void in nature, therefore the agreement cannot be terminated on the basis of breach of this clause. And thus she will be entitled to recover the dues which are pending in that case. Okay? Chalo. So let's move to the next one. Now, the next question which was given to us was our first analytical essay. ठीक है पहला essay था हमारा ये. Now, this essay was related to the issue of procedural lapses in our criminal legal system or criminal judicial system. Now, what was the essay about? What was the topic of the essay? Just a second. So, a court in Jharkhand acquitted an accused in narcotic case after the police reported that rats had consumed substantial quantity of seized ganja. Similar explanations have been recorded in other jurisdictions, raising concern about systemic negligence rather than isolated mishaps. Now, to what extent should courts tolerate procedural lapses by law enforcement, and how should the balance between individual rights and public interest be maintained in such cases? See, the situation which you are facing in this particular case, just a second, guys. Now, the situation which you are facing in this particular case is that rats in the dilapidated Malkhana destroyed seeds marijuana, and the state claims this was infrastructure issue and not malice. Now, it's about proving the guilt of another individual. And if there are procedural lapses on the part of the state, should the person be held guilty, even if there are procedural lapses on the part of the state? The answer should be no. Because one of the cardinal principle of criminal law, criminal legal system is that the person should be proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. But when these kind of procedural lapses are present over there, it creates a sense of doubt in the minds of the court that perhaps the state or the investigation agency are not working diligently with respect to the case over there. And therefore, when it comes to burden of proof, the state must prove the guilt beyond reasonable doubt. There is a constitutional imperative as well, because proper forensic preservation is a right and not a technicality. And the consequence of the same would be that if the state fails to preserve evidence due to negligence, the benefit of the doubt goes to the accused. So, in this case, the person should be acquitted because procedural lapses that destroy evidence violate the fair trial rights of the individual. And how should the court handle these situations? The court should basically try to make the investigation agencies much more effective in nature when it comes to the handling of these kind of incidents or these kind of your evidences or forensic evidences in the cases. All right, Chal. Let's move to the next question. Now, the next question was related to your issue of air pollution. Now, the question stated that India is living through a quite invisible genocide. It does not provoke agitation, does not occupy prime time discourse, does not shake governments, yet it kills more Indians each year than riots, terror, epidemics, and natural disasters combined. The insistence of reducing toxic air to a Delhi NCR problem is not merely a misdiagnosis, it is a national delusion. Air pollution in India is not regional, seasonal, or circumstantial and is no longer merely an environmental challenge. Now, does worsening air quality crisis in urban India, does worsening air quality crisis in urban India represent the failure to protect the right to life and health? Critically examine in the context of rising AQI level. Now, we all must have read and heard about Delhi's air pollution in the recent past. Yes or no? That's not something which is new. It was seasonal. Okay? It was considered to be seasonal in nature because that initially started during the period of November, December, January, February. But looking at the level of the pollution this year, it actually created or raised alarm within the civil society of the country that perhaps it's not a seasonal problem, it's a structural problem of our country in handling these kind of pollution related issues. And when it comes to right to health of a person, The person or the citizens of this country have a right to clean environment as well, protected under Article 21 of the Constitution, which gives us right to life and personal liberty. Therefore, we have to handle these things. But then you have to look at the sources of these polluting elements within the environment of our country. But that is something which is related to livelihood. If construction is the issue, if construction is the issue, then that is also a CC. If you wish to stop the construction activity, that would affect the livelihood of the person. If you wish to, let's say, close the factories during that duration, that will also affect the livelihood of the individual. So the air quality dilemma of this country is actually hinging upon the balance between life and livelihood of the individuals. So Article 21 of the Constitution guarantees right to pollution-free environment, but development needs oppose the shock therapy, that is the industrial shutdown. But there has to be a critique of status quo as well, that the gradualism has failed, creating a slow motion public health emergency, and reactive measures, that is graded response action plan, are episodic and not structural. And the burden falls on the poor who cannot afford air purifiers. Then how do we handle it? We have to move beyond gradualism, right? So the clean air must be viewed not as a luxury, but as a foundational prerequisite for all other fundamental rights. On the part of the governance, there has to be shift from emergency response to a long-term structural shifts. Whenever the AQI of Delhi worsens during the period of winter season, the government comes up with emergency responses of GRAP, implementing GRAP guidelines. But that is not something which can be considered as a seasonal problem anymore. And therefore, there is a requirement of shift from emergency responses to a long-term structural shifts in this situation. And massive scaling of public transport and renewable energy, which will require investment on the part of the government and enforcement of strengthening the polluters pay principle with independent audits of the activities as well. These are the kind of suggestions which you could have written in your essay number second. All right. And the last essay, or the topic of the last essay which was given to us, was related to, just give me a second. Yeah, which was related to our gig economy. Now, gig economy was again pretty much in news this year. Yes or no? So the question was that quick commerce has grown rapidly in India's cities since the COVID pandemic, with platforms using small neighborhood warehouses to supply groceries and household goods within minutes. The boom comes at a time when India's gig economy is slowly expanding, with the number of workers projected to rise from 7.7 million in 2021 to 23.5 million by 2030, according to the government think tank Niti Aayog. As competition intensified, the companies have promised ever faster deliveries, reshaping urban shopping habits. Now, the 10-minute delivery promise, the consumer convenience at the cost of worker safety and labor rights, was our issue. Now, gig economy is something which is pretty much important because it is actually shaping the silver economy of our country, right? It causes low barrier jobs, or it provides low barrier jobs and delivers consumer efficiency as well. But at what cost? You have to look at the paradox in the situation as well, because there is a gamification of the entire economy. Algorithms incentivize risk taking to meet 10 minutes deadline, and when it comes to the safety, the delivery window is internal, but the pressure is externalized onto the road. The company wants to deliver, okay, within or deliver the products within 10 minutes. But that leads to safety issues on the roads as well. So how do we handle it, or how do we balance it? So the core inequity is that the companies profit from speed while society bears the cost of road accident and healthcare burdens. And there is labor rights issues as well, because the delivery agents are considered as delivery partners. They are not considered as an employee, which actually leads to avoiding minimum wages and social security being provided to the employee in that situation. Lack of insurance, lack of health facilities, and so on and so forth. And there is an illusion of freedom as well, that the gig economy often masks a lack of dignity, because they are considered as delivery partner. Therefore, people think that they are working on their own, right? They have the freedom, they have the choice, they can do whatever they want to do. But the plight of the gig economy lies into the fact that There is a lack of dignity and protection which is being afforded to the gig economy workers. So the innovations cannot be built on foundation of physical peril, and regulations must ensure consumer convenience doesn't come at the cost of workers' safety. That's how we have to balance it. The companies have to ensure that the delivery agent should not be asked to deliver the products by taking risks which affects their entire family as well. Okay. So these were the three essays which were given to us, and you always have the option of choosing any one of them. So that's the analysis of the first NLSAT mock. See, when it comes to developing the habit of writing a good essay, I have always said that your newspaper is the best source. Nobody can say that there were no articles on the issue of air pollution last year in the newspaper. Nobody can say that there were no articles which can be found in the newspaper on your gig economy issue as well. And that goes for the rest of the sample papers which are issued by the NLSAT recently as well. Okay, which were issued by NLSIU recently as well, because all the topics which are mentioned in those sample papers, they were something which are present in our newspaper throughout that year as well. So the more you will read about those topics, the better answer you can write, or the better essay you can frame in 500 words within that particular time frame in your examination as well. Okay. So that's it for today. And I hope the analysis was helpful for you. And thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Hello, students. I'm Shazli from Top Rankers, and I welcome you all to the session on All India Open Mock Analysis for NLSAT. Well, student, this is going to be detailed analysis along with question solving session, and I'm going to give you analysis of all the passages along with the discussion around the questions. So, students, basically, if I talk about the overall health of the passage, so I believe that the level of difficulty was from easy to moderate. We found some direct question. In fact, most of the questions were direct. There were some questions around logical reasoning as well in English section because it's always the same. And we got some questions around GK as well. And when we talk about this question paper, so basically there are 75 questions in English section, which includes some LR questions as well and GK questions as well. So let's go ahead with the detailed analysis, students. So the first passage, basically first passage is around political analysis, and it's going to be an extract either from the newspaper. Basically, it is opinion based political analysis. Okay, the tone seems to be critical and cautionary because the passage questions the government's intent and also highlights the dangers of concentrating power. It is cautionary because it warns that democratic institution may remain intact but might lose substantive independence. So this is what exactly the passage is dealing with. Now, students, the important words from this passage can be ECI, that's Election Commission of India, Chief Election Commissioner, Supreme Court's judgment, appointment process, selection committee, Chief Justice of India, executive control, institutional independence, democratic institutions, consolidations of state power. I think ये एक अच्छे कुछ keywords मुझे यहाँ पे मिले थे which I just have discussed with you people. Now let's see the overall main idea of the passage. The passage discusses the conflict between the judiciary and executive regarding the appointment process of chief election commissioner and election commissioners. Now, it critiques the government attempt to alter the Supreme Court's directive by removing Chief Justice of India from the election committee, arguing that such a move may weaken institutional independence and consolidate executive power. So, basically, the passage is talking about something which is quite important. I think this must be an extract from editorial because when we had this, like scam around electoral, bonds and all, I think that was the time when all these points were being discussed in detail and many editorials around this came. So, question number one, student, let's see what necessary assumption. Now, basically, this question is around assumption. Just give me a second. Assumption. So it is CR based question, critical reasoning based question. When we solve these kind of questions, students, so assumption is something which is unstated. You should know the approach, correct approach. That means the option should be, it must be true as per the information given in the passage, but it should not be stated anywhere in the passage. So that's the correct approach of solving questions around assumption. Anything which is indirectly stated is inference. Anything which is directly stated is fact. All right, assumption is something which is unstated, which we just assume to be true. Something which is unstated in the passage. So have correct approach for such question types. So for this question, correct answer is D, students. Why D? Because we are talking about assumption made about the government's intent behind introducing a bill that seeks to replace. The government intends to consolidate state power through controlling appointment. All right. So this definitely is the correct answer choice, students. Because in the passage it is written that it wants greater weightage in the appointment and thus greater hold over the institution. One is dealing with the matter of electoral winnability and consolidation of state power, which is actually supporting option D as the correct answer choice. Why not other answer choices, students? The government seeks to minimize judicial interference in political appointment. Actually, minimizing judicial interference is not something which can be assumed by the passage. All right. So I would say this was not the core of the passage. So can't you won't be able to assume this. Okay. Now, government aims to bolster its democratic credentials by involving a union cabinet minister. It's incorrect, students, because it's just what the author has said opposite of it. All right. So this is just opposite of what is stated in the passage. The government is attempting to increase transparency in the appointment process. Actually, increasing transparency is obviously not assumed by the passage itself. I would say this is irrelevant. Now, next, irrelevant to the question. Intent behind introducing the bill that seeks to replace. So that's irrelevant to the question. Based on the passage, what is the significance of the Supreme Court's unanimous judgment concerning the appointment of Chief Election Commissioner CEC and the election commissioners? So, students, for this question, the correct answer choice is C. All right, the government aims to enhance the democratic legitimacy of ECI. So obviously this is correct, student, because even in the passage it is given that a major step towards broad basing the ECI and enhancing the constitutional status that has been discussed in the passage. Why not other answer choices, student? Let's see. The judgment aims to subvert the traditional roles played by the parliament. All right. So if you consider this, no such claims were happening there. So you can say not claimed by the passage. Not claimed. Okay. Option B, the judgment is designed to make the ECI immune from partisan politics. Again, student, this is incorrect because that is too extreme to consider it a correct answer. So you can eliminate this on the ground of extreme option. Option D, students, the judgment sets a precedent for judicial involvement. That's not emphasized anywhere in the passage. Hence, eliminate this as well. So you should know these points for process of elimination. Irrelevant, opposite, not the core, not claim, not emphasize. Remember these words, students. Question number 3. How does the passage imply the current model for appointing chief election commissioner and election commissioners could potentially affect democratic institutions? For this question, C should be the correct answer. The model invites the potential for undermining democratic value by concentrating state power. So this statement is true, students. Why? If you consider this passage, may it's given greater hold over the institution or consolidation of state power, making option C as the correct answer choice. Why not other answer choices, students? Option this one. This the model ensures that democratic institution remain superficially intact while being rendered functionally alert. See, students, this describes authoritarian government, not strictly the current model. So I would say, students, that this is not relevant to the question. So you can write down not relevant. Option B, students, let's check option B as well. Option B is not suggested by the passage. Write down not suggested by the passage. And option D, I think is just opposite of the argument. So option D is opposite to what is stated in the passage. Question number 4, based on the passage, which of the following best characterizes the government's response to the Supreme Court's March to judgment? Well, B is the correct answer choice here. All right. Why B? Because other options are, sorry, just give me a second. B is the correct answer because the rest of the options are opposite. So you can write it there, opposite, opposite. Only B is the correct one. Question number 5, students. The primary concerns regarding the government's proposed bill is, correct answer choice here is considered to be B, that it concentrates appointment power with the executive, potentially undermining institutional independence. Why this is correct answer? Because either like the rest of the options are either extreme or the opposite. All right, that's why we are eliminating this other answer choices. Either they are extreme or opposite. Options 6, sorry, question number 6. The passage, in the passage, the word pliant most nearly means. It's a vocabulary based question. Okay, pliant is easily influenced or controlled, compliant or flexible. Pliant basically is flexible. All right. We also use that plywood, no? That's quite flexible. So by that itself, you can learn this. Okay. Now question number 7. The Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners Act 2023 was enacted by the Parliament in, answer is C for this question. Now let's go ahead with the next passage. Yeah. Passage 2. Basically, this topic is around corporate DEI policies under legal scrutiny after the Supreme Court's affirmative action ruling. All right. So again, the passage is around Supreme Court, just like we had the first passage. This is again legal political commentary, and it can be opinion as well, opinion based article or editorial. Got it, students? The tone is critical because it describes DEI policies as having institutionalized discrimination. The tone can also be assertive because it strongly declares that well intentional racial discrimination is just as illegal as individuals' discrimination. All right. And then cautionary as well because It warns that companies should and will face serious legal consequences. So it's actually a kind of warning as well. Now, the main idea of the passage is the after the Supreme Court's decision in Students for Fair Admissions, uh, that's Harvard Corporate Diversity, Equity and Inclusion, DEI. Hiring practices that are racial preferences may be illegal under federal civil rights laws, and companies continuing such policies could face serious legal consequences. Got it, students? Now, let's straight away go to the questions, students. We have got some questions. All right. Question number 8. Based on the passage, what assertion do the state attorneys general make about? So this is a fact-based question. Correct answer choice here is B. Okay. Why not other answer choices? Option A. DEI policies are necessary step towards equal opportunity employment. Actually, passage does not support that it is necessary. It rather criticizes. It's just opposite. All right, criticizes. So obviously A is opposite. Option B is correct. Option C, DEI policies and affirmative actions in universities admissions are unrelated. While students, it explicitly connects DEI with affirmative action, so it's not unrelated. It's again opposite. DI policies are ineffective in correcting historical racial bias in the workplace. In argument, the argument actually is legal, not about the effectiveness. All right, so that's not the correct answer choice. Not relevant, I would say. Irrelevant answer. This is considered to be irrelevant. Now, question number 9. Based on the views presented by state attorneys general in the passage, what might be the potential consequence for Fortune 100 companies that continue to use DEI policies? Well, students, for this question, correct answer choice should be B. एक्चुअली पैसेज में ये डायरेक्टली लिखा हुआ है दैट कंपनीज दैट एंगेज इन रेशियल डिस्क्रिमिनेशन शुड एंड विल फेस सीरियस लीगल कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस. तो ये तो डायरेक्टली स्टेटेड था पैसेज में, हेंस बी इज द करेक्ट आंसर. व्हाई नॉट अदर आंसर चॉइसेस? द कंपनीज वुड एनहांस देयर पब्लिक इमेज. Actually, image enhancement is not mentioned in the passage, so you can eliminate this option. Not mentioned. Okay. Option C. The company's policies would be praised for combating historical bias. No such praise is happening. All right. No such praise happened there. Option D. The companies would have no potential legal repercussions given their private status. The passage explicitly says private entities are covered under law, so no such potential repercussion is opposite to what is stated in the passage. Now let's go ahead with next question. That's question number 10. Which additional piece of information would best strengthen the argument? So basically this is strengthening the argument, और argument क्या थी? यहाँ पे दिया हुआ है इन्होंने. Argument which is made by attorneys general regarding the discriminatory nature of DEI policies. अब this is again CR based question. यहाँ पे आपको strengthen बोला है students. So anything if we add to the passage, all right, related information based on the information given in the passage, if we add some information which may strengthen the argument, main argument, तो वो आपका होता है. So this is rather a supporting point to the main argument. Okay, so this is how you need to approach this question. So question number 10 का correct answer choice should be C. All right. Why C students? I'm explaining because this actually will show real harm and strengthen the legal claims of discrimination. Anecdotal reports from employees who believe they were negatively affected. That's the negative, that's showing the harm. All right. Now, students, option A, evidence demonstrating that DEI policies have not significantly improved workplace diversity. So basically, it talks about the effectiveness but not the legality. All right. Misleading option because it talks about the effectiveness. You can write it here, misleading. It talks about the effectiveness, not the legality. Okay, question number, sorry, option B. Option B is a Supreme Court's ruling emphasizing the importance of maintaining racial diversity in corporation. So, student, if I talk about option B, basically, it's just opposite of the attorney's general argument, hence eliminate. Option D, a recent study showing that most Fortune 100 companies support DEI policies. All right. Again, students, it's incorrect because the passage states that attorney generals enforce civil rights statutes. Or sorry. Basically, it talks about that popularity doesn't prove legality. Okay, so option D can also be eliminated. Now, question number 10. Based on the passage, which of the following misinterpretations of the author's argument could someone make? See, A is the correct answer choice because this is a clear misinterpretation. Focus on the keywords given in the question, misinterpretation. All right, this is a clear misinterpretation because the passage strongly opposes racial quotas. All right, so obviously it's making option A, the author supports racial quotas, is support, or author is actually against it. Okay, author is opposing it. So that's the misinterpretation. What about the other options, students? A and D are just claims. Sorry. B is not the main focus of the author believes that DI policies are ineffective in combating historical bias. Well, that's not the main focal point. Not the focal point. Eliminate. Option C, the author thinks that Supreme Court should not interfere in corporate policies. Wrong, students, because the passage supports Supreme Court's intervention. Okay, passage is rather supporting. तो यहाँ लिख दीजिए passage supports. Option D, the author posits that the state attorneys general lack authority in corporate matters. D option, the passage state attorney generals enforce civil rights statutes, making option D as the incorrect one. Question number 12. Correct answer देखिए, which of the following is a piece of evidence rather than a claim presented in the passage. अब यहाँ पे claim आपकी क्या होती है? Evidence नहीं होते, facts नहीं होते. यहाँ पे evidence पूछा है मतलब supporting point पूछा गया है student. So अगर अपन देखें C is the direct factual evidence. Fact based ही तो होता है evidence आपका हमेशा. Factual evidence. Option C. What about the other options? ऑप्शन ए जो था वो आपका क्लेम था. ऑप्शन डी भी आपका क्लेम था. ऑलराइट, पूछा क्या गया है आपसे? पीस ऑफ एविडेंस. एंड ऑप्शन बी आपका इंटरप्रिटेशन है, फैक्ट नहीं है. Interpretation. Got it? Question number 13. Based on the passage, Attorneys General letter argues that corporate DEI policies should face legal scrutiny because correct answer for this question is A. All right, why A? पैसेज में लिखा हुआ है कंपनीज विच आर कवर्ड बाय टाइटल should adjust to meet the same structures the justice applied to title 6. All right, so that's making option A is the correct one. Why not other answer choices, students? Corporations have no legal obligations, but corporations are actually legally bound. तो ये जो आपका स्टेटमेंट है इट्स फॉल्स. The Supreme Court explicitly ruled that all corporate diversity programs are constitutional. Basically, this is just opposite to what is stated in the passage. And the option student Justice Gorsuch's concurrence rejected any connection between educational and employment discrimination. Actually, Gorsuch emphasized connection. So that's making option he rejected or he emphasized. He rather emphasized. Hence, incorrect. All right, students. Now, next few questions are on screen. Question number 14th. The passage primarily purpose is to. Basically, this is the main idea based question, students. Main idea which should encompass all the important information given in the passage. All right, it should rather be the overall message being conveyed, the focal point being conveyed by the passage. So, correct answer choice here should be B. Explain how state AGs are applying Supreme Court's precedents to challenge corporate racial preferences. Because this is the only option which captures the overall essence of the passage. Now, what about the rest of the options? Option A, B, D are opposite to what is stated in the passage. All right, A, C, they are opposite. So correct answer here should be B. Now, in the passage, invidious most nearly means. So for this question, correct answer is invidious basically is harmful or unjust discrimination in context to the passage. So the correct answer is B, likely to cause resentment or animosity, offensive and discriminatory. So basically it is harmful or unjust discrimination. This is vocabulary based questions. Now next, fact based or GK. The Mandal Commission that recommended 27% of OBC reservation in India was chaired by, correct answer is B. Now let's go ahead with the next passage, students. Okay. So this passage basically is around the thrill of reality. All right, why real stunts work still matter in the age of CGI. So let's go ahead with the passage. The genre of the passage is critical commentary or opinion editorial on cinema and film culture. It evaluates trend in the film industry, presents arguments, cites examples, and advances a clear viewpoint, advocating recognition for stunts performers. So basically, the overall tone of the passage is mixed of both admiration and critical. So it can be considered as analytical. All right, it's reflective and analytical. Now let's go ahead with the main idea of this passage. Well, the passage argues that real life stunt work remain artistically valuable. All right, so ये जो stunts होते हैं, they are quite valuable and culturally significant as well because in some they are also demonstrate different cultures in an age dominated by CGI, yet stunt performers remain under recognized. They are not being recognized the way they should have been, and insufficiently appreciated as well, despite the physical risk they actually undertake. So, this is what exactly the passage is all about. Now, let's see the questions which are given there. Okay, question number 17, students. The argument that wigging should no longer be standard practice assumes correct answer here is B. Why B is correct? Because passage में लिखा है ना that McNair's case sent a message that wigging should no longer be standard. This actually implies concerns about discrimination and fairness in casting stunts performers. So obviously B should have been the correct answer choice for this question. Now why not other answer choices, students? Option A, male stunt performers are inherently more skilled. Actually, there is no such comparison happened in the passage. So you can write down no such comparison given in the passage. Now, next, the US Employment Opportunity Commission's ruling definitively resolved all discrimination concerns. The ruling went against her. It did not resolve all concerns. All right, so you can say this is incorrect information. It did not resolve all the concerns. Incorrect info. Now, David McNair's complaint had no impact on industry practices or conversation. Well, students, the passage says it sent a strong message. All right. So, opposite, because in the passage it is written, it sent a strong message. Got it? Now, question number 18. In the passage, connoisseurship most nearly means. Correct answer choice for this question is 18C. Expert appreciation and discriminating judgment of quality in craft. कहते हैं ना food connoisseur. All right, connoisseur. कुछ लोग connoisseur कहते हैं. All right. So question number 19th. Let's go ahead with question number 19th. Correct answer for this question. Based on the passage, which of the following most accurate representation of the author's claim main idea? Well, correct answer is C. The underappreciation of stunt work in the era of CGI. Why it's correct? Because the passage repetitively is stressing upon the recognition and the value. All right, so they are being undervalued. Hence, B is the correct answer choice. Now, Tom Cruise longevity in the Mission Impossible series. So this was just the. It's not main idea. It's just example. Okay. The dangers and disadvantages of performing one's own stunt. Option B, the passage acknowledges danger but doesn't argue against stunt. So you can say it's distorted. Option D, the rise of female stunt doubles in action movies. Gender basically is a sub theme but not the main idea. So you can write down it's the sub theme, not the main theme. Question number 20. Which of the following, if true, would most strengthen the author's argument? Again, CR specific question. And I have already said that anything which we add to the passage and may strengthens the argument. Hence, for this, correct answer choice is C. All right. Why C? Because this would prove audience value and strengthen recognition argument. All right. Why not? Other answer choices. An increasing number of films are using CGI for stunt sequences that suppose actually CGI, hence can't be the correct answer. Now B is rather weakening the argument. So write down the word weakening, weakens the argument. And D, a recent action movie with no real stunt won multiple Oscars. This undermines claims that real stunt deserve recognition. So you can also consider option D as weakens the main argument, weakens the main claim posed by the argument. Question number 21. Based on the passage, which of the following developments would most undermine the author's argument about the significant value of real life stunt work in films and need for greater recognition of this craft? For this question, correct answer is D, students. Sorry, not D. It should rather be A. Okay. A is the correct answer choice for this question. 21. Why A? Because if CGI becomes indistinguishable from real stunts, the uniqueness of real stunts weakens. Hence A. Why not? Other answer choices. The increased insurance costs lead to a fewer films under employing real life stunt works. Actually, this insurance cost doesn't attack artistic value. It doesn't attack artistic value. Artistic value. Got it? Option B. Option C देखिए. A rise in injuries and fatalities among the stunt worker prompts stricter safety regulations. Safety concerns do not negate artistic value. So ऑप्शन ये जो सी था ये दोनों के लिए है. ये वाला जो पॉइंट है आपका दिस इज फॉर बी एंड सी. ऑल राइट, ये वाला जो पॉइंट है फॉर बोथ बी एंड सी. एंड ऑप्शन डी देखिए स्टूडेंट्स. An increase in the number of female stunt workers challenges the traditionally male dominated field. Gender diversification supports equality, not undermine value. Hence incorrect. Option question number 22 देखिए. What is the author's primary stance regarding the value and recognition of stunt works in the film industry? All right. So for question number 22, D is the correct answer. The author advocates for the appreciation of real life stunts works and recognition for stunt workers. Why D, students? Because passage में लिखा हुआ है already. It is shocking that there is no BAFTA or Oscar, making option D as the correct one. All right. Now, why not? Other answer choices. The author argues for the abolition of real life stunt work due to its danger. So, author does not advocate abolition. Not advocated by the author. Okay. Option B, the author implies that only male stunt workers should be recognized for their contribution. Gender exclusion is not the argument there. Not the argument here. Option D, sorry, option C. The author believes that the significance of stunt work is overshadowed by advancement in CGI. Wrong, because author criticizes overshadowing but supports the real stunts. All right. So author is actually criticizing overshadowing. So I would say misleading language. Misleading language. Option D is the correct answer. Question number 23. Which of the following assertions would the author of the passage most likely agree with? Correct answer for 23 is again B. All right. Because the author clearly values real stunts over CGI authenticity. अब बाकी के ऑप्शंस क्यों आपके गलत है? पूछा क्या गया है क्वेश्चन में आपसे? डिसएग्री पूछा है. Rest of the options author is agreeing with. Okay. Now, question number 24. Correct answer. The passage comparison between CGI ubiquity and CD Winnie suggests which relationship between technological advancement and audience appreciation. 24 ka B is the correct answer. Saturation of new technology can paradoxically increase appreciation for traditional crafts. All right, why this statement is correct? क्योंकि passage में already लिखा हुआ है. Just as CDs have reawakened us to the pleasure of Winnie's vinyl record. All right. So option B is correct. Option A तो opposite हुआ आपका. I'm in a hurry, student, because normally YTs इतने lengthy नहीं होते and we have got 75 questions. So I'm just writing why I am eliminating the other answer choices. Okay, instead of explaining them in detail. So ये आपका opposite है. Option C देखिए students, it's not suggested by the passage. Option C, not suggested by the passage. By the passage. All right. And option D अगर देखें, the passage उल्टा लिखा है एक्चुअली यहाँ पे ऑब्सोलीट लिखा है, जबकि पैसेज में को एग्जिस्टेंस के बारे में बात हो रही है. को एग्जिस्टेंस. ऑल राइट. Obsolete is incorrect. So D is also incorrect answer choice. All right. Now next passage for question number 25 to 33 students. All right. Now this passage basically is around ecological nationalism as an alternative to ethno-nationalism in India. All right. ये जो passage है student, इसका genre हो सकता है आपका political and analytical essay, opinion based critical commentary can also be one of the genres. The passage analyzes political ideologies like इसमें civic nationalism के बारे में बात हुई है, ethno nationalism के बारे में बात हुई है, and ecological nationalism. So basically there are three kind of nationalism which are being discussed. One is civic, second is ethno, and third is ecological. All right. And also author is also evaluating their implication in the post colonial India. All right. Now let's see the passage, students. The main idea of the passage is that political climate dominated by ethno nationalism and hegemonic majoritarian narratives, ecological nationalism rooted in shared landscape, ecological consciousness and cultural memory may offer a more inclusive and integrative alternative for fostering unity in India. All right. तो पैसेज में यहाँ पे वही बताया है, एक उन्होंने इंडियन नेशनलिस्ट डिस्कोर्स से शुरुआत करी है पैसेज की, और ऑथर इज आल्सो सेइंग दैट ऑल्दो पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म प्रोमोटेड सिविक नेशनलिज्म, political developments often exposed contradictions between state-sponsored civic nationalism and smaller communities ethno-nationalism. All right. अब यहाँ पे ये बताया है और साथ में एक और चीज बोली जो हिंदू नेशनलिज्म है दैट इज बीन डिस्क्राइब्ड एज फंक्शनिंग एज मीटा एथनिसिटी promoting an ethnic democracy where a dominant group exert hegemony over minorities. अब देखिए स्टूडेंट्स इसके क्वेश्चंस पे फोकस करते हैं डायरेक्टली. Question number 25. Which of the following best represents the essence of ecological nationalism as an alternative to ethno nationalism in context of Indian politics as discussed in the passage? For me, the correct answer choice here should be B, क्योंकि passage में दिया हुआ है कि ecological nationalism is not necessarily obsessed with territorial nationalism. Rather, it prioritizes local history, traditions, regional geographical spaces, making option B as the correct one. Why not other answer choices, students? यहाँ पर देखिए a ecological nationalism hinges the hegemonous development drive fostered by corporate and command oligarchy. एक्चुअली ये जो ऑप्शन है आपका दैट डिस्क्राइब्स हेजमनिक डेवलपमेंट मॉडल क्रिटिसाइज्ड एट द एंड. ऑलराइट, तो आप कह सकते हो इट इज बीइंग क्रिटिसाइज्ड at the end, making option A as incorrect one. Why not others? अब देखिए यहाँ पे आपका इकोलॉजिकल नेशनलिज्म अंडरस्कोर्स द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ लैंग्वेज कल्चरल एंड एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव कन्वीनियंस इन शेपिंग द टेरिटोरियल स्टेट. इनकरेक्ट है स्टूडेंट आपका ये. ऑल राइट, बिकॉज इट टॉक्स अबाउट द पोस्ट कोलोनियल स्टेट फॉर्मेशन. ऑल राइट, वहां पे टेरिटोरियल स्टेट नहीं होगा. So obviously making option C as incorrect one. Now next, ecological nationalism prioritizes metropolitan material use of nature and natural resources for national development. So that describes politan ecological nationalism only, making option D as the incorrect one. Now next question, what is the primary role of the fifth paragraph? The Brahmaputra River communal oligarchy in the name of the nation. Correct answer choice for this question should be C, and I'll explain why. In context to the overall passage, to offer a specific, well, students, अगर आप ये question को देखें तो passage में उन्होंने जो लिखा है ना, Bhupen Hazarika had narrativized such as ecological nationalism, depicting the Brahmaputra as a melting point. All right, so this option C is providing the correct or concrete illustration. All right, why not other answer choices? आप ऑप्शन ए देखिए, it provides historical context for the emergence of ecological nationalism. It gives example, not historical origin. All right, it gives examples, not historical origin. This is for A. A ka why we are eliminating. To undermine the viability of ecological nationalism in post-conflict situation, well, students, option B actually question challenges but not undermine. All right, because of the word undermine, we are eliminating this. To argue that ecological nationalism inherently promotes corporate communal oligarchy, the passage critiques oligarchy. The passage critiques oligarchy. Now, question number 27th. Which of the following statement best reinforces the author's argument for ecological nationalism as a potential alternative to ethno-nationalism in India? अब ये आपका फैक्ट बेस्ड था। अच्छा, ज्यादातर आप देखो इसमें आर्गुमेंट स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चंस बहुत ज्यादा हैं। फैक्ट्स आर आल्सो बीइंग आस्क्ड इन द फॉर्म ऑफ आर्गुमेंट्स। तो लैंग्वेज थोड़ी सी ट्रिकी है फॉर ऑलमोस्ट ऑल द क्वेश्चन स्टूडेंट्स। अब यहाँ देखिए क्वेश्चन नंबर 29 का करेक्ट आंसर चॉइस इज सी। इकोलॉजिकल नेशनलिज्म promotes a shared cultural domain through connection between people and place. So definitely it's happening there. Hence C should have been the correct answer choice. Why not other answer choices? Ecological nationalism encourages the division of territorial states based on language and culture. So this is a state policy criticized. All right. So option A is definitely incorrect. Option, sorry, एक सेकेंड बच्चा। ऑप्शन क्वेश्चन नंबर 27 का सी क्यों करेक्ट है? वो तो मैंने बता दिया। 27 का इसका ए आपका क्यों गलत है? दिस इज अ स्टेट पॉलिसी क्रिटिसाइज। ये आपका जो था स्टेट पॉलिसी क्रिटिसाइज्ड, ठीक है। ऑप्शन बी, ecological nationalism emphasizes the economic and material use of natural resources. Wrong, because passage में मेट्रोपॉलिटन वर्जन के बारे में बात हुई है। एंड डी देखिए स्टूडेंट्स, ecological nationalism endorses the hegemonic vision. It's just opposite. पैसेज में इसका कंट्रास्टिंग पॉइंट बोला गया है। क्वेश्चन नंबर 28, which of the following statement if true would most significantly weakens author's argument for ecological nationalism as a solution to ethno nationalism in India? For this question correct answer is D. All right, because that directly attacks the foundation। और पूछा भी आपसे ये गया था weakens the author's argument। Okay, why not other answer choices? Option A देखिए, ऑप्शन है द ब्रह्मपुत्र रिवर सिस्टम इज सीन एज अ सोर्स ऑफ डिवीजन रादर देन यूनिटी अमंग कम्युनिटीज। इसमें ब्रॉड मतलब वीकन तो कर रहा है बट नॉट द मेन आर्ग्यूमेंट, नॉट वीकनिंग द मेन आर्ग्यूमेंट। तो आप लिख दो यहाँ पे नॉट वीकनिंग, मैं लिख देती हूं नॉट वीकनिंग द मेन आर्ग्यूमेंट। ओके, मैं इसका फॉन्ट बढ़ा देती हूँ स्टूडेंट्स। अब देखिए व्हाई नॉट अदर आंसर चॉइसेस। सी देखिए, द स्टेट सक्सेसफुली ट्रांसेंडेड the legacies of colonialism and avoided creating territorial state. So this actually undermines criticism of state but not ecological nationalism. All right, making option C as incorrect answer. Question number 29. According to the passage, which of the following can be inferred about the potential role of ecological nationalisms in the Indian context? Correct answer आपका D होना चाहिए था स्टूडेंट्स। ऑल राइट, डी इज द करेक्ट आंसर। इसके मैं पॉइंट लिख देती हूँ व्हाई नॉट अदर आंसर चॉइसेस। ऑप्शन ए इज एक्सट्रीम, दैट्स व्हाई वी आर नॉट, whenever we find extreme option we should immediately eliminate them. Option B is not at all stated by the passage and option C is just opposite to what is stated in the passage. Question number 23 देखते हैं स्टूडेंट्स। क्वेश्चन नंबर 30th, सॉरी 30th का करेक्ट आंसर आपका बी होना चाहिए। ये फैक्ट बेस्ड है तो मैं इसलिए इसके एक्सप्लेनेशंस पे फोकस नहीं करूंगी. आई विल एक्सप्लेन द क्वेश्चंस व्हिच एक्चुअली रिक्वायर एक्सप्लेनेशंस. ऑल राइट, तो इसका तो बी होना चाहिए था आपका 30th का. 31 का आपका बी इज द करेक्ट आंसर. अगेन फैक्ट बेस्ड है, जनरल नॉलेज वाले क्वेश्चंस, फैक्ट बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस को मैं एक्सप्लेन नहीं करूंगी. 33 का देखिए स्टूडेंट्स आपका सी शुड हैव बीन द करेक्ट आंसर चॉइस फॉर क्वेश्चन नंबर, सॉरी 33 का सी होना चाहिए. 30th बी, 31 बी, 32 का भी बी होगा, सॉरी. तो 32 का बी and 33 ka C is the correct answer. Got it? Now let's go ahead with the next set of questions. Just a second. Yeah. All right. So, अब देखिए नेक्स्ट पैसेज स्टूडेंट्स. नेक्स्ट पैसेज का मैं आपको डायरेक्टली टाइटल एंड मेन आइडिया बता देती हूँ. द टैक्स रिफॉर्म एंड द नीड फॉर फाइनेंशियल लिटरेसी सेफगार्ड. एडिटोरियल एंड ओपिनियन बेस्ड आर्ग्यूमेंट है क्योंकि यहाँ पे पब्लिक पॉलिसी डिसीजंस को इवेलुएट करा गया है एंड इट ऑल्सो प्रेजेंट्स रीजनड आर्ग्यूमेंट विद क्रिटिकल कॉमेंट्री. Okay, the tone of the passage is critical yet balanced. All right, analytical tone कह सकते हैं. Cautionary भी है because the author acknowledges that all of them are individually valid arguments, but cautious that bigger picture requires attention to financial literacy and consumer protection. The tone is not hostile but skeptical and dubious about lower income earners. अब ये जो पैसेज है इसका मेन आइडिया क्या था? While the new income tax regime offers high take home income and lower tax rates, the government must strengthen financial literacy initiatives and regulate unethical financial practices because many taxpayers, especially lower income earners, may not be equipped to make optimal financial decisions without the guidance previously provided by tax exemptions. ऑल राइट, तो ये जो पूरा का पूरा पैसेज है ना वो एक तरह के डिबेट को एग्जामाइन कर रहा है अबाउट इंडियन गवर्नमेंट्स न्यू टैक्स रेजीम. ऑल राइट, जहां पे बताया गया है कि टैक्स फ्री इट एक्चुअली इंक्रीजेस द टैक्स फ्री सीलिंग एंड लोअर रेट्स फॉर गिविंग अप एग्जेम्पशंस. While experts and policymaker presents valid argument for and against the reform, the author argues that broader implication need deeper scrutiny. ठीक है, अब क्वेश्चंस को डायरेक्टली देखते हैं स्टूडेंट्स. फॉर क्वेश्चन नंबर 34, correct answer choice for this question is A. Weakens the argument वाला क्वेश्चन है अगेन. ऑल राइट, तो सीआर बेस्ड क्वेश्चन था. आंसर ए होना चाहिए आपका. क्यों होगा बेटा ए? क्योंकि ऑथर आर्ग्यूज दैट मेनी टैक्स पेयर्स आर नॉट केपेबल ऑफ जजिंग व्हाट सूट्स देम ड्यू टू लो फाइनेंशियल लिटरेसी. अब अगर फाइनेंशियल लिटरेसी इंक्रीज होती है सिग्निफिकेंटली, so definitely it's going to weaken the author's argument against the finance minister's claim. ऑल राइट, तो आपका ए इज द करेक्ट आंसर चॉइस. व्हाई नॉट अदर आंसर चॉइसेस, वो देख लेते हैं फटाफट. आप ये देखिए, ये जो है आपका, ये स्ट्रेंथन कर रहा है आर्ग्यूमेंट को, नॉट ना कि वीकन कर रहा है. स्ट्रेंथन्स ऑथर्स मेन आर्ग्यूमेंट. ऑल राइट, व्हाई नॉट सी. अब अगर आप देखें सी, increase the number of fraud cases in the financial sector. More fraud cases strengthens author's concern. It also strengthens author's concern. Study shows that most taxpayers save enough to avail tax exemption. D देखिए स्टूडेंट्स, आपका वापस से स्ट्रेंथन कर रहा है, स्ट्रेंथनिंग द कंसर्न. क्वेश्चन नंबर 34 देखिए. What should the government do to make sure the change in tax system benefit lower income taxpayer according to the author? Correct answer choice for this question is C. All right. Why not? Other answer choices A. देखो students, increase tax exemptions. The author does not suggest it. All right, not suggested कह दीजिए यहाँ पे, not suggested. ऑप्शन बी देखिए स्टूडेंट्स, provide universal social security and health benefits. Universal social security is discussed as lacking, not as a direct solution. So आप लिख दीजिए it's lacking, not a direct solution. ऑप्शन डी देखिए स्टूडेंट्स, offer higher take home salaries. Option D is also incorrect, students, because higher take home salaries may encourage consumption. All right, तो आपने इसको भी एलिमिनेट कर दिया. Question number 36. Which of the following must be true if the author's argument are to hold? Correct answer choice for this question is B. The finance minister's statement that people must be the best judge for themselves is flawed. All right. Why C is the correct answer, students? Sorry. इसका C नहीं होगा, इसका B होना चाहिए. थर्टी सिक्स का B is the correct answer. अब देखिए B क्यों करेक्ट है आपका. The question, the author actually is questioning this assumption directly. पैसेज में लिया ना, many are not in the position to be the best judge for themselves, making B as the correct option. Why not other answer choices? The government has a duty to provide universal social security and health benefit. The passage says universal security is absent but doesn't exert duty. All right. तो आप कह सकते हो ये आपका डिस्टॉर्टेड था. ऑप्शन ए इज डिस्टॉर्टेड. ऑप्शन सी, लोअर इनकम अर्नर्स डू नॉट सेव इनफ टू टेक एडवांटेज ऑफ टैक्स एग्जेम्पशन. तो इसका मेरे हिसाब से करेक्ट आंसर होना चाहिए था. देखिए, दिस इज ए गवर्नमेंट क्लेम, नॉट द ऑथर्स की सेंट्रल एग्जेम्पशन नहीं था ना. ये जो पॉइंट था, ये आपका क्लेम बाय गवर्नमेंट, और पूछा क्या गया है आपसे, ऑथर्स आर्ग्यूमेंट. ऑल राइट. द न्यू टैक्स सिस्टम विल नॉट अफेक्ट द सेविंग रेट्स. तो इसका डी जो है, द ऑथर क्वेश्चन दिस न्यूट्रलिटी. ऑल राइट, तो यहां पे लिख दिए ऑथर इज स्केप्टिकल अबाउट इट. अब देखिए क्वेश्चन नंबर 37 37 का which of the following best describes the author's stance towards the new income tax system introduced in 2020 in India? For this, the correct answer choice is C. Why C? Because the author does not reject the system outright but calls for safeguards. आपका option A can be eliminated because it's not fully supported by the passage. Supported by the passage. Option B देखिए students. The author has a neutral? No, actually author is rather critical. लिख दो यहाँ पे, sorry, concerned. Clearly concerned. Author is concerned about something. All right, not neutral. तो ये आपका opposite हो गया. ऑप्शन सी तो करेक्ट था ही. ऑप्शन डी देखते हैं स्टूडेंट्स. द ऑथर स्ट्रांगली क्रिटिसाइजेस. एक्सट्रीम आंसर हो गया क्योंकि यहां पे स्ट्रांगली क्रिटिसाइजेस बोला है. सो दिस इज एन एक्सट्रीम आंसर चॉइस. ऑल राइट, नाउ लेट्स गो अहेड विद द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, दैट इज क्वेश्चन नंबर 38. So अब देखिए स्टूडेंट्स क्वेश्चन नंबर 38. व्हाट रोल डज द फाइनेंशियल प्रोडक्ट्स आर रूटीनली मिससोल्ड. अब ये इसका करेक्ट आंसर चॉइस आपका है सी, डायरेक्टली स्टेटेड इन द पैसेज, जहां पे लिखा है फाइनेंशियल प्रोडक्ट्स आर रूटीनली मिससोल्ड. ऑलराइट, रेस्ट ऑफ द ऑप्शंस आपके एलिमिनेट हो रहे हैं. जैसे ये जो आपका पॉइंट था इसमें इट सजेस्ट दैट द ओल्ड टैक्स रेजीम हेल्प्स गाइड फैमिलीज टुवर्ड्स प्रूडेंट एसेट एलोकेशन. ये जो आइडिया था ये आपका बाद में आया है बच्चा. ऑल राइट, एंड ये जो आपका ऊपर वाला है बी, ये इनडायरेक्टली सपोर्ट कर रहा है बी, बट दैट्स नॉट द मेन आइडिया, सो ऑब्वियसली दैट्स इनकरेक्ट. बाकी तो आप देख सकते हो इजी ऑप्शंस थे. 39 देखिए स्टूडेंट्स, क्वेश्चन नंबर 39. The passage discussion of mandatory provident fund contributes primarily serves to illustrate. Correct answer is C. That policy recognition of behavioral limitation justifies structured financial protections. Correct है students, passage में दिया हुआ है if people did not need the government's prodding, no need for mandatory contribution. So this illustrates behavioral economics justification. अब देखिए आपका बाकी के जो ऑप्शंस है या तो वो इरेलेवेंट है या ऑपोजिट है. आपका ये जैसे ये जो इसमें दिया हुआ है एलिमिनेटेड. ऑल राइट, नॉट सजेस्टेड, दिस इज ऑपोजिट. ऑप्शन बी इज ऑपोजिट. ऑप्शन डी देखते हैं स्टूडेंट्स इसका. ऑप्शन डी जो है automatic improve savings, not mentioned. Got it? Question number 40th. In the passage conspicuous consumption most nearly refers to. ये इजी क्वेश्चन था. इसका करेक्ट आंसर आपका होगा स्पेंडिंग इज इंटेंडेड टू डिस्प्ले वेल्थ और सोशल स्टेटस. ऑलराइट, कॉन्स्पिक्यूअस कंजंक्शन जो ब्रांड पे ज्यादा फोकस करते हैं, पैसेज में क्लियरली स्टेटेड था. ऑलराइट, माइंडफुल कंजम्पशन नहीं होता है कॉन्स्पिक्यूअस कंजम्पशन, जैसे पैसेज में जो दिया है उसके हिसाब से. ऑलराइट, माइंडफुल कंजम्पशन तो नहीं होगा. अब यहां पे रेशनल एसेंशियल थिंग इज जस्ट ऑपोजिट. ऑल राइट, इन्वेस्टमेंट इन प्रोडक्ट एसेट्स ये भी आपका ऑपोजिट होगा. एंड फ्रूगिलिटी इज जस्ट ऑपोजिट ऑफ कंजम्पशन. क्वेश्चन नंबर 41 देखिए, विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग बेस्ट समराइजेस दिस पैसेज सेंट्रल आइडिया. अब एक्चुअली ऑप्शन सी इज द सेंट्रल थीसिस. Moving away from exemption-based taxation requires enhanced financial literacy and consumers protection measure. All right. बाकी जो है आपके स्टूडेंट्स वो या तो फोकल पॉइंट नहीं है, जैसे बी आपका ऑपोजिट हो गया ये, और बाकी जो थे वो आपका सेंट्रल आर्ग्यूमेंट की सबरी नहीं थी. गॉट इट. नाउ लेट्स गो अहेड विद द नेक्स्ट पैसेज फॉर क्वेश्चन नंबर 42 to 49. ऑल राइट. सो अब देखो स्टूडेंट्स, ये जो पैसेज है आपका, बेसिकली इट्स अबाउट डिमांड विदाउट सप्लाई, द फ्रेजिलिटी ऑफ यूएस इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ. ये भी आपका एडिटोरियल का ही मुझे पार्ट लग रहा है पैसेज आपका, देखा अगर मैं देखूं तो. ऑल राइट. seemingly a part of passage, sorry, opinion editorials. Op-ed भी कह सकते हैं, opinion based editorial. Tone of the passage आपका critical skeptical है, because the author questions the optimism about GDP growth, also criticizes current economic policies, especially demand side spending and regulatory approaches. पैसेज बेसिकली बात कर रहा है यहाँ पे that although consumer demand has kept the US economy from recession, weak private investment signals deeper structural problems caused by demand focused economic policies, regulatory burdens, and insufficient supply side reforms. Without corrective measures, economic stability remains fragile. ऑल राइट. तो ये आपका ओवरऑल जिस्ट पैसेज का था. अलाउ मी टू टेक द क्वेश्चंस नाउ. जस्ट अ मिनट स्टूडेंट्स. जस्ट अ सेकेंड. हाँ, तो अब ये देखो क्वेश्चन नंबर 42. सॉरी, या question number 42. The author's primary concern about the current US economic policy has depicted in the passage centers around. For this, the correct answer choice should be A. All right. A क्यों आपका करेक्ट आंसर है? The economic policies mismatch between stock demand and resulting supply side incentives. The author's primary concern is the mismatch between, ये करेक्ट है आपका, पैसेज में दिया है. This runs counter to theory Keynesian used to sell their pandemic era spending blowout that stoking demand would stimulate more supply. It hasn't. ऑल राइट. अब देखिए स्टूडेंट्स, ये जो आपका ऑप्शन बी है, इट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ अ ब्रॉडर क्रिटिक. एंड ऑप्शन सी जो है आपका, रीजनल बैंक्स मेंशन तो है बट नॉट द सेंट्रल कंसर्न ऑफ द पैसेज. तो आप कह सकते हैं दिस इज अ सपोर्टिंग पॉइंट. ऑप्शन सी. एंड ऑप्शन डी देखिए, the passage focus on weak private spending, not disparity between public and private investments. All right, that's making option D as the incorrect answer choice. Question number 43. Which of the following is true? Would weakens author's argument? तो अब देखो यहाँ पे आपका ऑप्शन बी इज द करेक्ट ऑप्शन. In the past fiscal quarter, sectors previously registering declining investment reported a turnaround after specific policy reform. Actually, if sectors previously declining in investment showed recovery after policy reform, that would weaken authors' claim that policy does not support productive investment. All right. क्योंकि पैसेज में दिया था ना, सपोर्टिव प्रोडक्टिव बिजनेस इन्वेस्टमेंट विच दे हैव फेल्ड टू डू. सो दिस ऑप्शन बी इज वीकनिंग ऑप्शन देखिए, अब यहाँ पे आपका जो ऑप्शन ए है वो स्ट्रेंथन कर रहा है ऑथर का आर्ग्यूमेंट। ऑल राइट, ऑप्शन ए इज स्ट्रेंथनिंग, तो आप लिख लो यहाँ पे। रेस्ट ऑफ द ऑप्शंस कैन बी कंसिडर्ड एज इनकरेक्ट। जैसे आपका ऑप्शन सी देखिए, दैट सपोर्ट्स ऑथर क्लेम्स, तो ये स्ट्रेंथन करेगा। एंड ऑप्शन डी देखिए, इंप्रूव्ड कॉन्फिडेंस विदाउट इंक्रीज्ड इन्वेस्टमेंट डज नॉट वीकन्स ऑथर क्लेम, तो ये इनरेलेवेंट हो गया। क्वेश्चन नंबर 44. The passage suggests the relationship between business investment and consumer demand. Which of the following best represents this complex relationship as described in the passage? For this question, correct answer choice is C. ये पैसेज में डायरेक्टली स्टेटेड था स्टूडेंट। ऑल राइट, तो आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू एक्सप्लेन दिस बिकॉज दैट्स डायरेक्टली स्टेटेड। क्वेश्चन नंबर 45 देखिए, डी इज द करेक्ट आंसर। अगेन ये आपका ऑथर्स आर्ग्यूमेंट जो दिया है इन्होंने, ये डायरेक्टली स्टेटेड था, तो 45 का डी इज द करेक्ट आंसर। नाउ लेट्स गो अहेड विद क्वेश्चन नंबर 46. I'm taking the difficult questions now because we don't have that much of time. Okay. So अब देखिए, the author's attitude towards the Biden administration's economic policies can be best described as correct answer choice, critically skeptical. ये आपके tone based question था। All right, so please learn the tone word skeptical. All right, sardonic, sarcastic, ironical, positive, optimistic. अब यहाँ पे देखिए, पैसेज में उन्होंने ऑथर ने बोला ना, व्हाट अ मिस्टेक दैट वुड बी, तो ये स्केप्टिसिज्म शो कर रहा है। ऑल राइट, विच इज मेकिंग ऑप्शन बी इज द करेक्ट आंसर। व्हाई नॉट अदर आंसर चॉइसेस? अब ये देखिए, एंथुसियास्टिकली सपोर्टिव, तो ये तो आपका इनकरेक्ट हो गया, क्लियरली नॉट सपोर्टिव। पैसेज में ही इज क्लियरली नॉट सपोर्टिव। नाउ ऑप्शन कंप्लीटली न्यूट्रल, तो ये भी आपका गलत है। ऑल राइट, न्यूट्रल तो नहीं था। स्ट्रॉन्ग इवैल्यूएटिव लैंग्वेज आपकी जो थी वो एग्जिस्ट कर रही है, तो जहां पे इवैल्यूएटिव लैंग्वेज होगी वहां पे न्यूट्रल तो हो ही नहीं सकता ना। इवैल्यूएटिव, न्यूट्रल मतलब होता है इंफॉर्मेटिव, ये तो इवैल्यूएटिव है। ऑप्शन डी देखिए, माइल्डली ऑप्टिमिस्टिक, नो ऑप्टिमिज्म इज एक्सप्रेस्ड इन द पैसेज। Question number 47. Um, Based on the passage's reasoning above investment and economic policy, which scenario would the author most likely view as worsening the investment decline discussed? तो ये आपका है worsening the investment decline। ठीक है, तो ये आपका कीवर्ड था क्वेश्चन का। पैसेज में स्टूडेंट दिया है ना, ओनली फॉर अ नैरो कोहोर्ट ऑफ फेवर्ड ग्रीन बिजनेस, everyone else will pay higher taxes, which is making option B. The government announces that new sector specific subsidies exclusively for electric vehicle manufacturers while raising corporate taxes. Why not other answer choices for? अब देखो A आपका क्या है यहाँ पे, Congress enacts broad-based corporate tax reduction. Actually, broad tax reduction would align the author's preferred policy, not worsening, तो ये तो ऑपोजिट हो गया। ऑप्शन सी देखिए, फेडरल रिजर्व मेंटेन्स करंट इंटरेस्ट रेट्स व्हाइल बैंक इंक्रीज लेंडिंग टू स्मॉल बिजनेस, तो ये जो आपका ऑप्शन सी था, मोर लेंडिंग वुड ईज इन्वेस्टमेंट डिक्लाइन, ऑपोजिट। All right, and this is also somewhat opposite. Administration removes environmental regulations. Removing regulatory burdens would support investment, not worsen. Opposite. अब फैक्ट बेस्ड क्वेश्चन आ गए। 48 का करेक्ट आंसर इज सी एंड 49 का करेक्ट आंसर इज बी। ये फैक्ट बेस्ड क्वेश्चन है, आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू डिस्कस देम। नाउ नेक्स्ट पैसेज फॉर 50 to 57. All right. सो ये जो पैसेज है स्टूडेंट आपका, ये है यूएस इन डिसीजन ऑन F-16 एंड द कॉस्ट टू यूक्रेन काउंटर ऑफेंसिव। जॉनर ऑफ द पैसेज पॉलिटिकल ओपिनियन है, जिसे आप एडिटोरियल ओपेड भी कह सकते हैं। The tone of the passage is sharply critical, frustrated, and accusatory. The author criticizes Biden administration for withholding advanced weapons, blaming Ukraine's performance, delaying decisions on F-16, and citing cost and complexity inconsistently. All right. So, in a nutshell, if I want to talk about this passage, so the passage argues that Biden's administration's delay and hesitation in proving F-16 fighter jets and a stronger military support to Ukraine has weakened Ukraine's counter-offensive efforts, increased casualties, and undermined US credibility, despite air superiority being essential for success. अब इसके क्वेश्चंस को देखते हैं स्टूडेंट्स। क्वेश्चन नंबर 50th, बेस्ड ऑन द पैराडॉक्स। पैराडॉक्स का मतलब होता है टू कॉन्ट्रडिक्टरी थिंग्स हैपनिंग टुगेदर साइड बाय साइड, वो होता है आपका पैराडॉक्स। ठीक है, टू कॉन्ट्रडिक्टरी थिंग्स हैपनिंग टुगेदर साइड बाय साइड। तो अब अगर आप इसको देखें तो पैसेज के अंदर क्या लिखा था, years टू ट्रेन द पायलट्स, years to do the maintenance, way more billions of dollars. So the main impediment cited in the cost and time for training and maintenance. Hence, correct answer choice should definitely be A. Got it, students? Because that's actually showcasing the correct paradox. अब यहाँ पे देखो स्टूडेंट्स, सेकंड में इन्होंने कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी मेंशन जरूरी करी है, बट सेकेंडरी टू कॉस्ट टाइम कंसर्न। ऑल राइट, तो एलिमिनेट दिस ऑप्शन। ऑप्शन सी देखिए, बाइडेन्स एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन बिलीव द यूक्रेन डजंट नीड F-16। आपका बाइडेन्स अर्लियर सेड दैट यूक्रेन डजंट नीड F-16, बट दैट इज नॉट प्रेजेंटेड एज द मेन ऑनगोइंग इम्पेडिमेंट। ऑल राइट, क्योंकि यहाँ पे पूछा क्या क्या है, व्हाट इज द मेन इम्पेडिमेंट, मतलब रुकावट और हर्डल, ऑब्स्टिकल। ऑल राइट, नाउ डी देखिए स्टूडेंट्स, द इनहेरेंट रिस्क्स एंड पोटेंशियल पॉलिटिकल फॉलोआउट्स ऑफ सप्लाइंग सच एडवांस मिलिट्री हार्डवेयर। डी डेफिनेटली आपका इनकरेक्ट ऑप्शन है, बिकॉज पॉलिटिकल फॉलोआउट इज implied but not directly stated as the key barrier over there. Question number 51. Which of the following best describes the potential bias? ये fact based था. I'm not going to explain it. All right, B is the correct answer choice. Because passage में author ने clearly support कराया है greater US military. All right. अब देखिए why not? Question number 52 देखते हैं. Which of the following could best serve as a counter argument? अब देखो स्टूडेंट्स, यहाँ पे मुझे लगता है कि escalation should have been the correct counter argument. The author's assertion that US should provide more substantial military support to Ukraine. All right, अगर आप उसको यहाँ पे कहोगे escalation, तो वो ज्यादा पॉइंट होगा आपका। अब देखिए यहाँ पे लिखा है यूक्रेन्स मिलिट्री इज नॉट कॉम्पिटेंट, जबकि पैसेज में बोला है कि यूक्रेनियंस आर अडेप्टेबल। ऑल राइट, तो इट्स मेकिंग ऑप्शन बी एज द इनकरेक्ट आंसर चॉइस। तो आप लिख दो यहाँ पे इट्स इनकरेक्ट इन्फो। सी देखिए, द यूएस हैज ऑलरेडी प्रोवाइडेड सफिशिएंट सपोर्ट टू यूक्रेन। The author believes support is insufficient. All right. पैसेज में लिखा है insufficient. Financial and logistical resources would be better used domestically. Domestic use of fund is plausible but not directly connected to strategic military debate. तो कह दो आप not related to strategic military debate. Which of the following statement best strengthens the author argument? कितने सारे क्वेश्चंस हैं यहाँ पे आर्ग्यूमेंट्स स्ट्रेंथनिंग वीकनिंग में. All right. So for this question, correct answer choice should be B. Ukrainian forces have proven adaptable. All right, passage में लिखा है ना. The Ukrainians have nonetheless used US anti-radiation missiles in ingenious ways. This proves adaptability. All right, hence B. आपका ये ऑप्शन सही तो है, but seemingly it's weak as well. ऑप्शन सी देखिए स्टूडेंट्स, पूछा गया है strengthens author's argument. ऑप्शन सी is weakens author's argument. Similarly, other Western alliances are also hesitant to provide. यहाँ पे this also weakens. Okay. Question number 54. What is the author's primary criticism of Biden's administration's approach to Ukraine? Passage में दिया है ना, withholds the heavy firepower and then laments, making option B as the correct answer. The administration's delayed is an insufficient support undermines Ukrainian military effectiveness, which officials blame Ukrainian performance. So this directly shows criticism of delay plus blame. बाकी के जितने भी ऑप्शंस है ना, others are contradictory. मैं यहां लिख देती हूं, other options are contradictory. अब question number 55. What can be inferred about author's view on the relationship between air superiority and Ukraine's ground offensive success? Correct answer for this question is B. No Western military would execute this offensive without controlling the skies. That clearly indicates air superiority is crucial. Others are contradictory to the passage. तो आप यहाँ पे लिख दिए, others are contradictory, contrasting point. ठीक है. Question number 56. Tone word था आपका, the author's tone towards, easy था. Unseemly, dithering, bill for this indecision. All right, that indicates frustration and sharp criticism. So obviously B आपका correct answer होना चाहिए. Easy question था, I'm not going to explain this further. Question number 57 देखिए students. The chairman of this serves as a principal military advisor to which three? ये तो direct question है. Again, I will not explain because that's directly stated in the passage. All right. Rest of the options are institutionally incorrect. अब next passage देखिए students. For question number 58 to 64. अब ये जो पैसेज है आपका, title of the passage for this passage can be violence against women, historical roots, patriarchal mindset and the need for social reforms. Social commentary है students ये आपकी because it presents facts, traces historical developments, analyzes causes and argues for social reform. All right. The main idea of the passage is violence against women in India has deep historical and patriarchal roots, continues in various forms due to societal attitudes and women's dependent status, and can only be effectively addressed through legal enforcement, social awareness, collective actions, and attitudinal change beginning at home. ऑल राइट, अब यहां पर देखो स्टूडेंट्स आपका क्वेश्चन नंबर 58। मैं डायरेक्टली क्वेश्चंस पे जा रही हूं बिकॉज वी डोंट हैव दैट मच ऑफ टाइम, सो अलाउ मी टू गो टू द क्वेश्चन डायरेक्टली। ऑल राइट, सो लेट्स सी द क्वेश्चन स्टूडेंट्स। क्वेश्चन नंबर 58, ये तो डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन था। C is the correct answer. Which of the following is not true? ये भी fact based है आपका। Question number 59, B is the correct answer. All right. Not true पूछा था क्योंकि 59th में। All right. First one is true. Passage में दिया है people seem to have no fear of law. All right. B is nowhere stated. C option भी आपका true था passage के हिसाब से। Violence aggregated by caste, religion and communal and class given. All right. And यहाँ पे जो ये वाला point था men dominate women, that has also been given in the passage. अब ये देखिए ये भी आपका next direct question है, C is the correct answer. जो direct questions है I am not explaining क्योंकि unnecessary, it takes a lot of time. जो directly given है I am not actually giving any explanations for such questions. अब आ गया question number 61. That is something I need to explain. Weakens author's argument. All right. अब यहां पर देखिए स्टूडेंट्स आपका A is the correct answer. आपकी weakens author that women's economic dependence is a major factor enabling violence against them. Study shows that economically independent women in urban areas experience domestic violence. अभी इन्होंने क्या कहा था? जिनके पास इकोनॉमिक डिपेंडेंसी है ऑन अदर्स उनके साथ ज्यादा वायलेंस होता है, और ये वाला उसको कॉन्ट्रडिक्ट कर रहा है। क्या बोल रहा है यहाँ पे कि जो विमेन इंडिपेंडेंट है फाइनेंशियली, ऑलराइट, उनके साथ भी बहुत ज्यादा डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस हो रहा है, तो दैट इज कॉन्ट्रडिक्टिंग दैट स्टेटमेंट आपकी जो, तो ऑब्वियसली इट्स वीकनिंग। ऑलराइट, तो व्हाई नॉट अदर आंसर चॉइसेस, ये जो तीनों है आपके, ये दोनों तो आपके स्ट्रेंथन वाले पॉइंट हो गए। ठीक है, और ये जो ऑप्शन डी था वो इररेलेवेंट है। नाउ नेक्स्ट देखिए, द पैसेज आर्ग्यूमेंट दैट एटीट्यूडनल चेंज इज रिक्वायर्ड राइट फ्रॉम द होम फॉर विमेन्स टू स्टैंड विद डिग्निटी नेसेसरीली अज्यूम्स। करेक्ट आंसर इसका होना चाहिए था बी। ऑल राइट, वाई बी इज द करेक्ट आंसर? बिकॉज इसमें ये जो स्टेटमेंट है आपकी बी, दैट इंप्लाइज that home attitudes shape society. ऑप्शन ए ऑपोजिट है, लिख दो आप लोग यहां पे, दिस इज ऑपोजिट। ऑप्शन ये जो है आपका नॉट स्टेटेड, रिलेटेड इंफॉर्मेशन इज ऑल्सो नॉट स्टेटेड, एंड ये जो आपका ऑप्शन है दैट इज एक्सट्रीम। अब देखिए, based on the passage reasoning, if new policy provides extensive legal protection and harsh punishments for violence against women, but does not include public awareness campaign or educational programs, the most likely outcome would be, correct answer choice for this question is 63 ka B, limited effectiveness because societal attitudes and awareness remain unchanged. All right, B is the correct answer choice. अब देखिए यहाँ पे आपका इसके जो दूसरे पॉइंट्स है, कंप्लीट एलिमिनेशन ऑफ ऑल, ये तो थोड़ा सा अनरियलिस्टिक हो गया। ये आपका लीगल डेटरेंस जो उन्होंने बोला है, तो ये जो आपका था, ये ओवरस्टेट्स लीगल पावर, ओवरस्टेट्स लीगल पावर। एंड डी देखिए, डी जो है आपका वो इलॉजिकल जंप है, सॉरी। आप लिख लेना, इसमें इलॉजिकल जंप है। अच्छा, हैंग हो रहा है, सॉरी। अब देखिए क्वेश्चन नंबर 64। ये आपका डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन था, तो मैं इसका डायरेक्ट आंसर बता देती हूँ। आपका बी इज द करेक्ट आंसर। अब देखो स्टूडेंट्स, क्वेश्चन नंबर, दिस इज गोइंग टू बी द लास्ट पैसेज फॉर टुडे। फॉर क्वेश्चन नंबर 65 to 75, this is going to be the last passage. Allow me to explain this passage first of all. क्वेश्चन नंबर 65 to 75। तो स्टूडेंट्स, ये जो पैसेज है बेसिकली इट्स अबाउट उबंटू फिलोसफी, ऑल राइट, इंटरकनेक्टेड ह्यूमैनिटी एंड द एथिक्स ऑफ रिकंसिलिएशन। फिलोसफिकल पैसेज था स्टूडेंट्स, ये लिख लो आप लोग यहाँ पे, इट इज फिलोसफिकल। ठीक है, this is the genre for this passage because the passage explains the concept of Ubuntu, discusses its ethical implications, and supports it with example from historical figures and social practices. The passage actually explains the philosophy of Ubuntu, or Ubuntu, whatever people says, which emphasizes human interconnectedness and collective humanity, arguing that compassion, reconciliation, and affirmation of human goodness lead to ethical living and social harmony. Got it? अब देखिए स्टूडेंट्स, यहाँ पे क्वेश्चन नंबर 65, अलाउ मी टू टेक दैट। What can be inferred from the quote, I am a person through other person, my humanity is tied to yours? ये तो बहुत इजी ऑप्शन है आपका। अ पर्सन्स आइडेंटिटी इज लिंक्ड विद अनदर पर्सन, डायरेक्टली स्टेटेड बाय दिस स्टेटमेंट इटसेल्फ। ऑल राइट, अ पर्सन्स आइडेंटिटी, आई एम अ पर्सन थ्रू अदर पर्सन, ये आइडेंटिटी बता रहा है ना। ऑल राइट, मेकिंग ऑप्शन डी एज द करेक्ट वन। ऑप्शन ए आपका नैरो हो गया, वो सिर्फ इंटरकनेक्टेडनेस बता रहा है, सो लेट्स एलिमिनेट दिस ऑप्शन। आपका ऑप्शन बी लेस प्रिसाइज है। ऑल राइट, लेस प्रिसाइज एंड एक्यूरेट, बहुत ही जेनेरिक सा था। ऑप्शन सी देखिए इनकरेक्ट है, ऑपोजिट हो गया। म्यूचुअली इंक्लूसिव होना चाहिए, एक्सक्लूसिव नहीं, ऑपोजिट था। अब क्वेश्चन नंबर 66 आपका डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन था। apartheid is actually racism. And question number 67, based on the passage, what can be inferred from the expression dehumanize? अब देखिए वही यहां पर भी vocabulary based question हो गया आपका dehumanize वाला। तो करेक्ट आंसर इज बी, टू रिगार्ड, रिप्रेजेंट और ट्रीट अ पर्सन। dehumanize, ह्यूमनाइज मतलब ह्यूमन से कम कर देना, ऑब्वियसली करेक्ट आंसर हुआ। vocabulary based क्वेश्चन था। क्वेश्चन नंबर 68 देखिए, Which of the following sentences will come as a conclusion to the last paragraph? तो इसका करेक्ट आंसर था आपका डी, फर्स्ट एंड थर्ड. So D definitely is the correct answer choice. Now, which of the following, if true, would most strengthens passage argument? Strengthening वाला है. Question number 69 B. Argument क्या थी? That Ubuntu philosophy promotes better social outcome than individualistic approach. So communities practicing Ubuntu based conflict resolution show lower recidivism rates and stronger social cohesion. This directly supports Ubuntu's social benefit. अब जो दूसरे हैं या तो वो इंडिविजुअलिज्म को सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं या वीकन कर रहा है. रेस्ट ऑफ द ऑप्शंस. ऑल राइट, तो आप कह दो यहां पे सपोर्ट्स, अदर सपोर्ट्स, इंडिविजुअलिज्म, और वीकन्स. अब देखिए क्वेश्चन नंबर 70 वीकन्स द आर्ग्यूमेंट. अब देखिए यहां पे वीकन्स का पूछा था उन्होंने. दैट Ubuntu practice described in the passage where community members focus on wrongdoers' positive qualities. So, if accountability is crucial for victims' healing, then focusing only on positive may weaken justice. So, option A is the only correct answer. Rest of the options are strengthening. ठीक है. अब देखिए क्वेश्चन नंबर 71. स्टेटमेंट 1 एंड स्टेटमेंट 2 आपको देखना है. व्हेन वी डीह्यूमनाइज अदर्स वी एंड अप डीह्यूमनाइजिंग आवरसेल्व्स. टू हील both spirit and body, one had to learn to look at positive aspects of any other person or group of the situation. तो ये तो देखो फर्स्ट वन जो आपका था इसमें 71 का A, statement 2 provides practical remedy for problem identified in statement 1. Correct. Statement 2 provides a practical remedy for the problem identified in statement 1. Now next 72. ये तो आपका डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन था स्टूडेंट. 72. सो आई गिव द आंसर. ऑल राइट, फैक्ट बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस जो है ये आपके जीके वाले क्वेश्चंस जो बीच बीच में आते हैं इंग्लिश सेक्शन में, तो उसमें आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू गिव एनी एक्सप्लेनेशंस. ऑल राइट, अब यहाँ पे देखिए 72 का करेक्ट आंसर इज ए, 73 का करेक्ट आंसर इज बी, 74 करेक्ट आंसर इज बी, and 75 ka correct answer is B. All right, students, so that's all for today. I hope now you have had a good understanding. Just a little quick overview of what we have done so far. So this mock comprises passages around political system, then judiciary system as well. We got passage around philosophy as well. We got passage around economics as well. So these are the famous genres or the important genres for NLSAT examinations. I hope you will read quite often around these genres. So that's all for today. Keep practicing questions around strengthens and weakens and assumption based questions as well, because they are the hardest one in NLSAT. So thank you so much, students. Bye. Take care.